Seeing his brother injured, the younger brother carefully licked his wound. A fierce gunfight had occurred a moment ago. The assassin was this man with dragon horns on his head. Xian is a human alpha mafia boss. At this moment, he is being suppressed by the pheromones of the dragon Omega, Shuo, unable to move. He couldn't understand how an alpha like him could be suppressed by an Omega's pheromones. Before he could react, Shuo had already pointed the gun at his forehead. The president of the Night League, Xian, has harmed the innocent and illegally trafficked clans for profit. Now it's time to atone. As soon as he finished speaking, Shuo pulled the trigger. With the gunshot, the mission was perfectly completed. When reporting the mission's outcome to the boss, he was told that the second floor hadn't been patrolled yet. When he arrived on the second floor, he found a little boy crying. Shuo recognized him as Xian's son. The boy saw the gun in his hand and instantly showed a look of terror. "Who are you and why are you in my house?" Shuo quickly hid the gun, cleared his throat, and told the boy he was from the military base. The next second, the boy threw himself into his arms. "That's great, my father was killed, they will definitely come for me. I don't want to die, brother, please save me." Shuo looked at the pitiful boy in front of him. Although he was Xian's child, there was no record of him in the information provided by the base. So he tentatively asked the boy if he knew who killed his father. The boy said he didn't know, he was just sleeping and woke up to find they were all dead. Shuo no longer suspected him and was about to help him up when the boy fainted. Since this boy was just a bet, with a very low risk factor and also not on the list for this mission, Shuo began to waver and abandoned the thought of killing him. So, when reporting the completion of the mission, he did not mention the boy. In fact, the scene where Shuo killed his father just outside, it was all seen by the boy. He knew he was no match for that man at the moment, so he decided to take a gamble and pretended to know nothing. Thus, he was taken away by Shuo. Shuo brought the boy to his foster father's house and explained the situation. The foster father felt that if he liked it there, he could stay, as the family was not short of money. Regarding the ID needed for the boy's schooling, his foster father would also find a way. The boy quietly listened to Shuo making a phone call, thinking that if he entered an ordinary school, who knows how long it would take to reach that level of expertise. Revenge would then be even more elusive. After hanging up the phone, Shuo told the boy that his foster father would send someone in the afternoon to help him get an ID, and that he had to return to the base for some work. The boy got up, cleverly took his brother's hand and said, "Brother, you go ahead with your work, I'll be good and wait at home." Then he even escorted his brother to the door, displaying his cute and obedient demeanor. Shuo was relieved, and after he left, the boy started to smirk. "You are too naive, brother." 3 days later at Military Base 101, wounded Shuo is treating his wounds in the room. A bullet hit his chest. Suddenly, he hears a noise at the door. Shuo sharply picks up his gun and points it at the door, only to find it is Sima. Shuo is very shocked and asks why he is here. If Sima'u's identity is exposed, he could be executed by the base, and Shuo would face the harshest punishment as well. Sima tells Shuo that Father Fu sent him over. Shuo is half believing and half doubting after hearing this. He takes his hand and tries to lead him away. At this moment, Sima starts acting, saying, "All my family is dead." "Brother, do you also think I'm a jinx? Afraid that I'll bring you misfortune by being by your side?" Seeing his aggrieved look, Shuo doesn't know what to say. At this moment, Sima notices that Shuo is injured and quickly takes his hand with concern. "It must hurt since it's bleeding." This moment deeply moved Shuo. As the executor of the base, navigating through numerous A+ level high-risk missions, bearing the security of the entire base, so some respect him and some reject him. But this kind of sympathy seems to be the first time. Lost in thought. At this moment, Mojue gently bites his injured finger, helping him lick the wound. "Brother, look, the wound has stopped bleeding." Shuo was completely bewildered, hurriedly letting him rest and planning to take him away tomorrow. But Mojue clung to the corner of his shirt, saying he was afraid of the dark and dared not sleep alone. "Brother, can I sleep with you?" The younger brother secretly licked his brother's wound while he was asleep. As a result, the brother found out. Mojue, holding onto Shuo's shirt, said he was afraid of the dark and cold, but Shuo was utterly indifferent. "Bringing you back was my greatest mercy. I have no obligation to sleep with you. You better face the reality soon," and then he asked him to leave. Because Shuo knew the moment the gunfire rang, it was destined that there would be no further relationship between them. Mojue could only leave helplessly but stayed leaning against the door without departing. In the middle of the night, unable to bear it, he suddenly sees Mojue sleeping on the floor. He starts to blame himself, thinking that if he had investigated more thoroughly before the mission, perhaps such a tragedy wouldn't have happened. Then, he picks him up and brings him back to the room. Afterward, Mojue slowly opens his eyes and softly calls out brother. Making sure he is now asleep, he slowly unbuttons his shirt and gently licks his wounds. And his purpose is to become the person closest and most trusted by Shuo, which is the most painful thing. The next day, Shuo wakes up feeling dizzy and is amazed to find that his wounds have healed, apparently the work of Mojue. Unexpectedly, as an executor, he was approached by someone without noticing. At this moment, Mojue slowly opens his eyes and says, "Good morning, brother." Before he could finish, Shuo grabs his throat. Then, with a gun pressed against his forehead, Mojue desperately struggled. "Why do you have to do this, brother?" Shuo coldly warned him, "Remember, just because I spared you doesn't mean you can do as you please with me. If there's a next time, I won't hesitate to pull the trigger." After that, Mojue trained with the others at the base. Shuo would check on the situation from the side and observe Moju's performance. Shuo thought his movements were standard but lacked strength. The next second, Mojue was singled out by the instructor for his stiff and weak actions, telling him to run 50 laps around the training field to loosen up. This instructor changes his face too quickly, thought his teammates, who couldn't help but worry for Mojue. Shuo, watching from above, was speechless. He wanted the instructor to be strict, not harsh. With no choice, Mojue had to do as the instructor said and ran under the hot sun, noticing Shuo by his side. So it's clear now that it was him who instructed the coach to do this. His goal was to make me give up, but Mojue was determined not to let him succeed. "Since I have to run, I'll finish the run. Since you're running, keep going until the end. Just a few more steps to go, keep cheering yourself on." But in the end, he collapsed from exhaustion. At that moment, Shuo came to his side. "Your physical condition isn't suitable for staying at the base. Go back to school and stop wasting time here." He really wanted to make him back down. Mojue struggled to stand up, determined to prove himself. Finally, gasping for breath, he finished the run. Unexpectedly, he persevered. Shuo was also moved. At that moment, Mojue wobbled and started to fall forward. Shuo caught him in time. Everything was part of Mojue's plan. He just wanted to entangle with his brother Shuo like this, never giving up. What does it feel like to be forcibly dragged to take a bath by his brother? When Mojue woke up and ran again, his injured hand was already bandaged. At that moment, he heard his brother's voice. After cleaning his gun, his brother was about to take him for a bath. "This move totally confuses me. Is my brother actually going to help me bathe?" Shuo recalls what the doctor said earlier. Mojue's hands were injured and should not touch water for a week because his body is a plant and dehydration is severe. When he wakes up, he needs to be given nutrient solutions for his bath. Although it's troublesome, Shuo still prepares the bath as instructed and adds the nutrient solution to it. Unexpectedly, brother really intends to help me bathe, even though his technique looks somewhat clumsy. Suddenly, my brother touches a sensitive spot, and Mojue instantly blushes. Shuo is clueless about what just happened. Overwhelmed by the comfort, Mojue can't help but make a sound, while Shuo continues to massage nearby. Feeling overwhelmed, Mojue quickly covers himself and tells Shuo that this is his sensitive spot. Seeing the plants sprouting from Mojue's body, Shuo immediately recognizes them as poison wolf flowers. The poison wolf flower, like his father, follows his stories. Shuo recalls the mission details from the base, indicating that Xian had no partner at that time, and the assassination list only included him and a few close associates. Mojue told Shuo that his father committed suicide when he was 10 years old. Upon hearing this, Shuo felt the same way, because he also separated from his father when he was 10. Mojue admitted that his father was his only relative in the world, so he couldn't leave the base. Only by staying at the base could he become stronger and have the ability to fight the enemy. Seeing Mojue's determination, Shuo didn't say much more. "You can stay, but remember, you must never reveal your true identity to anyone, or I will kill you myself." Mojue quickly promised that he would obey. Given that, Shuo also looked forward to his growth, until his thorns could penetrate him. One day, Shuo just opened the door and suddenly smelled an unfamiliar scent. When he entered the room, Mojue directly embraced him with a bouquet of flowers, because it was his first time receiving flowers. Shuo felt a bit embarrassed as Mojue, with a flushed face, told him it was also to thank him for helping her bathe last night. Then, holding his hand, they went to eat together, and this meal was personally made by him. He thought his brother would like it, but saw him reach for the flower in his hand and destroy it in front of Mojue. "You probably don't know how strong your enemy is. Right now, you are extremely weak compared to him. If you're content with the status quo and don't strive to improve, there's only one outcome for you. Like your father, you will die by the gun." His brother's words instantly awakened him. But he didn't understand why his brother, the best operative at the base, wouldn't teach him personally, following only you would give him the ability to face his enemy fairly, isn't that right? Unexpectedly, his brother agreed. Mojue began to doubt, agreeing so readily, did he feel she couldn't possibly defeat him? Could he truly be unbeatable? During the AO physiology class, the teacher told everyone that omegas would enter their heat period, also known as the rut period, after the age of 16. During this time, no matter how strong an omega is, they will be unable to resist an alpha. Their pheromones will be out of control. At this moment, Mojue thought of Shuo. In other words, even someone as strong as him would also lose resistance to an alpha during that time. But would someone as stoic as him show that kind of expression? Suddenly, he realized his thoughts had wandered elsewhere. However, this lesson was very beneficial to him. Now he knew that even his brother wasn't invincible. Mojue had unexpectedly changed from a beta to an alpha, just in time for his brother's rut period. At this moment, Mojue had grown up and turned into an alpha. He couldn't wait to see his brother's surprised expression. It was really something to look forward to. When he opened his brother's door, a strong wave of pheromones wafted toward him. His brother was trembling all over and collapsed on the ground. The younger brother was stunned when he saw this. Could it be that the older brother is in his heat? He hurriedly went forward to show concern. With tears in his eyes, the older brother looked at the person in front of him. Are you Mojue? He held back, not asking the younger brother to get him the suppressant. At this moment, the younger brother lifted his chin. Didn't you notice, brother? I'm already an alpha now. Let me help you. Saying this, he picked up his older brother and started releasing pheromones. Isn't this better than a cold suppressant? Seeing his older brother in this state, the younger brother wondered if there had been any other man who had done this before. He began to release pheromones to test. Looking at the teasing gaze of the younger brother, the older brother was helpless. At this moment, he only wanted the pheromones, but the younger brother insisted that he answer the question first. But the older brother's current state made it impossible for him to resist. Probably no one would believe that the usually stern executor would have such a side, right? For the younger brother, this day has been awaited for too long. He finally waited for the day he could mark his older brother. He unhesitatingly injected him with pheromones. After coming out of the shower, suddenly ice crystals flew towards him. The speed caught him off guard. He was immediately subdued. It turned out the older brother had woken up. The sober older brother returned to his usual aloofness. It seems I spoiled you too much usually. How dare you take advantage of me? Seeing the younger brother has no intention of admitting his mistake and is still being cheeky, the older brother got angry and prepared to strike. The younger brother was scared. He suddenly opened his eyes and realized it was just a dream. At this moment, he smelled a faint hazelnut scent and heard the dorm supervisor's voice outside. From their conversation, it was learned that it might have been influenced by Yiling's pheromones, which is why he had such a dream. Normally, secondary differentiation is completed at 16. I am already 17, it shouldn't be possible to differentiate again, but I indeed smelled the pheromones and thought about going to the hospital for a checkup. If I can really differentiate into an alpha, revenge would be much easier. At the training ground, my older brother trains with my younger brother every day. Although my younger brother is making progress, his skills are still not enough compared to our older brother. All those trained to enter the 101 military base. All those trained to enter the 101 military base must be the best. 1 month later, the selection for the 101 Special Agents team. And this time Mojue's opponent is Yiling listening to the countdown on the field. Both of them are ready. As the countdown ends, Mojue launches the first attack. Yiling is knocked down without time to react. The people outside the field were stunned, they didn't expect the enemy to be defeated in one move. Mojue retracts the vine. Give up, you're not my match. Yiling wipes the corner of his mouth, I won't give up. Then he uses his skill to leap towards Mojue. Because of his speed, Mojue simply can't dodge. Since he can't dodge, he decides to finish it quickly. The younger brother forgot to close the door while bathing and was caught on the spot by his sudden arrival. To pass the assessment, the younger brother harbored the intent to kill and directly launched a powerful skill towards Yiling. Even when his opponent was already powerless to resist, Mojue continued to attack. At the critical moment, his brother intervened to stop him. The moves in force just now were not meant for a companion. Do you want to kill Yiling? Faced with his brother's stern questioning, the younger brother panicked. He had won, shouldn't he be praised? This was how their father taught him. Why was his brother now looking at him with such an expression? It hurt him deeply. Later, seeing his brother in the gym, the younger brother approached cautiously. "Brother, are you still angry with me?" Seeing his brother's dejected appearance, the elder decided to have a talk with him. The younger brother explained that before meeting his brother, he had never been exposed to the outside world. After their father passed away, their father rarely came home. In that big house, it felt like he was the only one alive. The ideology passed down by their father was that the end justifies the means, and nothing else mattered. The elder brother told him that the world is very complex and cannot be judged simply. But no matter what, one must not be unscrupulous in achieving goals, nor can one disregard the lives of others. While comforting his crying younger brother, the younger brother also expressed that he would definitely not let his older brother down. Seeing his obedient younger brother Shuo, he softened his heart once again, considering it a compensation for him. The next day, the younger brother returned from a hospital checkup, thinking about what the doctor had said earlier. It turns out there was nothing wrong with his body. The reason he hadn't differentiated was due to taking a drug from a young age that suppressed gland differentiation. After stopping the drug, differentiation could proceed normally. Speaking of the drug, Mojue thought of the heart-protecting pill he had been taking since childhood. He had never stopped taking it since he could remember. Last time, he left in a hurry without bringing it, so he had stopped taking it for a while. But he didn't understand why his father didn't want him to differentiate into an alpha and become the heir. At this moment, he smelled the scent of omega pheromones on himself. He thought it might have come from queuing at the hospital just now, but he found the scent rather unpleasant. While showering, he suddenly thought of his brother. It seemed he had never smelled his pheromones, not even after exercising yesterday. Curious about what his brother's pheromones smelled like, he suddenly felt like he was thinking about a bunch of nonsense, and his body started to act uncontrollably. At this moment, his brother came to the room, found the door unlocked, and quickly walked towards the bathroom following the sound. I thought my brother was feeling unwell, but when I went over, I stumbled upon that scene. Just then, my brother got startled by the sound of the door closing, wondering who it was. Not until he heard my cough did he ask, "Bro, how did you get in?" I told him it was because he hadn't shut the door. I heard he was going to the hospital, so I came to check on his health. Then I comforted him, telling him this is a normal part of puberty and not to be mentally stressed. At this moment, my brother was so embarrassed he could have hidden away in a 3-bedroom apartment. I, blushing, stepped out, finding these teenage quirks quite endearing. Already 21 years old, after the rain, I took my brother to the amusement park. Hearing that he rarely explored the outside world, I seized these delayed exam days to show him around. I didn't expect that I would actually remember what he said. Since it was our first time to this kind of place, I also needed to check the map first. My brother looked at me, and although I might seem aloof, I am actually a warm and delicate person. Father always smiles, but I never felt warmth from him. Now, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Clearly, I'm thinking about revenge. I shouldn't be feeling this way, but I don't know why I can't take my eyes off him. I even want to touch his hand, but I haven't taken that step. Later, I ate cotton candy with my brother. We released balloons together. It feels like these are all things my brother likes. At that moment, my brother asked a passing lady to take a picture for us. The lady suggested we pose holding hands, so my brother directly held my hand. The lady exclaimed it was perfect. Suddenly, a cry for help came from the crowd. My brother realized something was wrong. He immediately let go of my hand and said, "I'll go check it out, you wait here." The joy of holding my brother's hand was instantly interrupted, and I felt very upset. I was originally helping my brother with his wound, but gradually, it seemed like I couldn't control myself. In the crowd, a kidnapper was holding a child hostage. "Don't come any closer or I'll kill him." Shuo arrived at the scene and immediately released ice crystals. The man recognized him as an executor at a glance. Shuo noticed an ordinary child beside him and devised a plan, directly attacking Mojue. Shuo quickly activated a skill to defend, but unexpectedly, the spikes bypassed the ice crystals. They directly attacked him. When Shuo realized it was a trick, it was too late. Now he was injured by the spikes. The man laughed triumphantly. "So this is the so-called best executor?" Just as I thought. His brother rushed over to check on him. In the next second, he glared at the man, and vines surged towards him. They choked him on the spot. "How dare you hurt my brother?" The man, struggling to breathe, knelt down and begged for mercy. At this moment, the older brother reminds his younger brother not to kill. The younger brother doesn't understand, saying earlier that they can't harm good people, but this person is clearly bad. The older brother tells him that any crime will be punished by the law, and no one has the right to take someone's life on their own. They have already contacted the city security bureau, and someone will arrive soon. He asks him to go check on the child first, noticing the older brother's awful complexion, wondering if those thorns could be poisonous. After returning, the younger brother carefully helps the older brother remove the poison thorns. The older brother tells him that the thorn's poison is not very strong, it will only temporarily paralyze the nerves and make him weak. But the younger brother still doesn't dare to be careless, carefully disinfecting each wound. Hearing the older brother's pained voice, the younger brother immediately apologizes, and then proceeds to blow on it. At this distance, he can clearly see the older brother's face, thinking it's still so handsome even with injuries. I didn't expect he'd still look so good with a wound on his face. And his lips look so soft. Such a nice face shouldn't be scarred. It looks like this wound is a bit deep. The younger brother suggested helping the older brother by sucking out the toxin. Before the older brother could refuse, the younger brother took matters into his own hands and started. The usually aloof older brother could now be at his mercy, gazing freely. Seeing the younger brother like this, the older brother felt something was off. He wanted to resist but couldn't muster the strength. Finally, at the crucial moment, the older brother regained control. The younger brother was a bit surprised. Didn't he have no strength left? The older brother asked if he had taken a biology class. The younger brother said he had taken one class. Seeing the older brother like this, he thought maybe the older brother was going to do something. The older brother told him that those actions are only for one's partner. The younger brother felt a bit disappointed, saying he just wanted to heal the older brother and hadn't thought much about it. In hindsight, it seemed to be true, and it looked like the younger brother had no reaction. In fact, the younger brother's face was already flushed, afraid the older brother would notice. Then the older brother told him he was much better and asked him to go rest. I have a wilderness survival assessment tomorrow. Everything went smoothly during the assessment the day after. But just as I was about to reach the summit, the rocks above suddenly became loose, and I fell down. Hearing his brother on the phone with his boyfriend, the younger brother felt jealous. Just as he was about to fall, suddenly a hand grabbed him. It was Yi Ling, whom he nearly killed that day. Mojue looked at him in surprise. After being pulled up, Mojue curiously asked him why he saved him. Yi Ling replied calmly, first and foremost, we are teammates, and only then competitors. I have no reason to not save you. After saying that, he immediately switched back to competition mode. At this moment, Mojue also realized what his brother meant. Human emotions are indeed very complex. Throughout the journey, drones were following them. At this time, Mojue was looking for water and food. Suddenly I heard someone shouting for help. It seems there are others nearby. Upon closer look, indeed, two people were trapped. Thinking that the drone is filming, if I don't save them, my brother would be very disappointed seeing that. I had no choice but to save them. The two quickly thanked me. Seeing that it was Mojue who saved them, Junqi was immediately startled. After all, during the last competition, he almost killed Yi Ling. But everyone witnessed it. At this moment, Mojue noticed the food in their hands. Now the drone was also blocked by the leaves. Just as he was about to snatch the food, Chen Fei suddenly invited him to eat together. This was something Mojue hadn't expected. The next day at noon, the first person to pass the assessment came out. It was Mojue, and just as he came out, his brother also considerately handed him water. Feeling instantly filled with strength, the other members also gradually emerged. Eating the chocolate given by his brother, could it be my brother was worried about me, that's why he was waiting for me at the exit? At that moment, my brother's phone rang. The tone he used on the phone was very different from usual. The younger brother wondered who was on the other side of the strange call. Could it be his boyfriend? Suddenly, he felt something was off, but it's normal for his brother to have a boyfriend at his age. Besides, he is so outstanding and good-looking. But the thought of him having a boyfriend was quite annoying. Hearing his brother agree to meet with the person on the phone that evening, the younger brother thought they were going on a date. So, after his brother hung up the phone, he directly asked if that person was his boyfriend. Just as his brother was about to respond, someone called him away, leaving the younger brother feeling lonely. After the assessment results came out, everyone was grouped. The next evening, Shuo led the grouped assessment members to the den. After rescuing and subduing the people, Shuo realized that the gland levels of those 4 alphas were very high, and their tattoos were the same as those on the close followers of Sixian. So I immediately contacted Yunzhou and told him that this place might not be an ordinary hideout. Moreover, the mastermind behind this might be one of Xian's subordinates. Before Yunzhou could send reinforcements, Shuo told everyone to retreat first. Although they were worried about Shuo's safety, they had to follow orders. During the retreat, Chen Fei suddenly heard something and immediately told everyone that someone was coming. Because he is a black cat Omega, his ears are more sensitive than others. Sure enough, they saw a man kidnapping a little girl. It seemed he wanted to remove the girl's gland. Yi Ling and Chen Fei decided to go out and save her. Junqi told them to stay calm and follow Commander Shuoyu's order to retreat first, but the two insisted on going out. With no other choice, Junqi had to follow them. Mojue thought that the person who set up this place might be his father's subordinate. If he could get in touch with him, then his path of revenge wouldn't be so solitary. So he also decided to go out to meet that person. The brother discovered the cruel side of his younger brother. Will he still protect him this time? The man picked up the scalpel, ready to make a move on the poor little girl. Just then, agents from the special forces appeared outside the door, Yi Ling being the quickest among them. He immediately activated his skill, teleporting instantly to rescue the little girl, but the man was not panicked at all. Instead, he recognized them as people from the 101 base right away. To enter the base, their gland grade must be quite high. His subordinates began to release oppressive pheromones. In an instant, several of them lost the ability to resist. Seeing Chen Fei in danger, Junqi hurriedly stepped forward to block. At that moment, Mojue released the pheromones of the poison wolf flower, directly suppressing the opponent. It was unexpected that his pheromones were so powerful, but it wouldn't last long. After they all left, Mojue stayed behind. The man was tied up by him. Speak, who is directing you to do these things? Even tortured, the man still refused to reveal the mastermind behind the scenes, but Mojue was capable of anything. Accompanied by a scream, the man couldn't hold on anymore. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Ling returned, taking advantage of their conversation. The man quietly cut the rope and then pressed the mechanism. By the time they realized, it was too late. Yi Ling was first entangled by chains. Driven by a strong desire for revenge, the man decided to start with Yi Ling, to make Mojue taste the pain of losing a companion. Despite having seen such scenes countless times, seeing it happen to Yi Ling made him feel a sourness in his heart, even leading him to doubt whether everything in the past was a mistake. This time, he didn't want to just stand by coldly, but he couldn't break free from these damn chains. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door was kicked open. Shuo rushed to the scene, accompanied by Yunzhou. Seeing his older brother come to rescue him, the younger brother was very happy. Yunzhou went over and with one flap of his wing, sent the man flying. Then he shattered the switch. Can you still hold on? Because Yi Ling's glands were severely injured, Yunzhou decided to take him away first. The younger brother knew he had made a mistake by not retreating as his brother said and quickly apologized to his brother. He was already prepared to be punished, but unexpectedly, his brother did not blame him. You all did a great job saving people. You deserve a reward. He should be rewarded. Learning that his younger brother sprained his ankle, the older brother immediately squatted down and said, "Come on, I'll carry you." Feeling so warm on his brother's back, he wished it could always be like this. Would everything be okay if he stopped seeking revenge? That night, Shuo received a USB drive from He Corporation. Tonight, those men were also under the orders of Xian's son. After viewing the contents, Shuo confirmed that Xian's son was ruthless and his methods were very cruel. He is a very dangerous person. Although he wore a mask in the video, it was indeed Mojue. At this moment, Shuo feels very conflicted. Although he always knew that he was not as innocent as he appeared, he still held a slight hope that he hadn't been too deeply influenced by Xian's actions. He asked his subordinate if the colonel had seen this video. The subordinate told him that the colonel had asked him to bring this USB, and that the colonel intended for Shuo. Within a month, capture Xian's son and bring him to justice. After his true identity was exposed, the younger brother planned to die together with the older brother. Mojue couldn't understand how Chu recognized him even though he was wearing a mask at the time. The only possibility was that time he went to the hospital for a checkup. But now the important thing is not this, but whether the older brother would agree. After the subordinate conveyed the colonel's intention to Shuo still agreed. Hearing this, Mojue was instantly disheartened, but he did not intend to sit idly by. While the older brother went to meet the colonel, he quietly came to his brother's room door. Because the password hadn't been changed, he easily got in. Based on his understanding of his brother's habits, he quickly found the gun his brother had hidden. Since it can no longer be concealed, let's die together with the older brother. After a while, the older brother returned to the room. As soon as he opened the door, he was hit by the younger brother's pheromones. He instantly collapsed to the ground and was entangled by vines released by the younger brother. At this point, he had no strength to resist. He was directly bound up. It seems you overheard our conversation. Is it time to drop the disguise and show your true colors? It's a pity I didn't see through your plot earlier and was deceived by you for so long. The younger brother told the older brother that it's too late to say these things now. Then he pressed a gun to his chest and pulled the trigger. With a bang, the wall was pierced. The younger brother held the older brother, crying and apologizing continuously. Since he could remember, he did many cruel things to gain their father's approval, living in their father's critical system from childhood to adulthood. Whether their father was satisfied depended on whether he was the ultimate winner. No matter how ruthless the means, in his eyes, it was excellent before he met his older brother. He had no idea that all he had encountered before were the dark world and distorted values. His brother's arrival brought light into his world. He thought that with just a bit more time, he could completely escape from his former world. But now, it seems that wish was too extravagant. In your eyes, I am just a little monster in the thorns, a potential threat that you need to eliminate. Reflecting on his past life, Mojue picked up the gun from the ground, intending to end his own life. That's when his brother opened his eyes. The vines entwined around him instantly shattered from his frost, and he grabbed his brother's hand. You couldn't bear to shoot me just now, but now you're pointing the gun at yourself. It turned out that the shot his brother fired earlier was deliberately off target. He couldn't bring himself to harm his brother. Seeing his brother stand up, Mojue couldn't believe it. He had just used his power, and his brother should have been unconscious. In fact, the moment he entered the door, his brother had sensed Mojue in the room. It was also a test for him. Through Mojue's story, his brother learned that he had a conflict with Shuo. Shuo's gland was seriously injured, indirectly caused by Mojue. Therefore, he thought of exposing his identity, forcing him to leave the base, capture him, and then kill him out of vengeance. After listening to his brother's story, brother wanted to confirm with him, "Look into my eyes and tell me, can I trust you?" The younger brother quickly stepped forward, looking sincerely at his brother, "Please trust me." Moved, the older brother decided to trust him once. Instructor Shuo also learned about Mojue's true identity from Shuo, and to prevent the colonel from finding out that Shuo was hiding his identity, and the potential consequences that could follow, he decided to take action. The older brother realized that his younger brother was about to defect. When he wanted to flee, it was already too late. The fact that Shuo helped his brother hide his identity was still discovered. According to the base's rules, he had to be punished with whipping. Second real combat assessment in the rural underground black factory. On this side, the team members under the leadership of Instructor Shuo successfully completed the mission and learned that Shuo had gone to receive his punishment. Instructor Shuo decided to initiate his own plan. He had already sent the address to Shuo. By now, the people he sent should be on their way. It's too late to turn back now. Everyone followed Instructor Shuo's order to retreat. Mojue was arranged to be at the very end. On the way, Instructor Shuo seized the moment to press a mechanism. The floor under Mojue's feet instantly opened, and he fell through. His companions wanted to save him, but the floor immediately closed up. Right after he fell, he heard the voices of a group of strangers behind him. The few men didn't say another word and started to attack. Mojue, still young, was somewhat unable to withstand several grown men, especially since they also had hidden weapons. A needle strike made Mojue immediately collapse. The men called Shuo. Although he was busy, he still made time to answer the call and asked them to take Mojue to a villa in the suburbs. At the base, Shuo was lying in bed covered in wounds, with Mojue carefully taking care of him beside. It has been over a dozen hours, and Shuo's forehead is still burning hot. A dozen hours ago, Mojue was captured. Suddenly, an ice wall appeared on the road, blocking their way. The person who came was Shuo. Just earlier, his brother got seriously whipped trying to protect him, yet he still rushed over to save him as soon as he received a call for help from the team. And all this was caused by Instructor Shuo. If it weren't for his secret collusion with Shuo to set a trap, Shuo wouldn't have been so delayed in treating his wounds to save him, leading to such severe injuries. Unfortunately, he has now left the special agent team to face punishment. Otherwise, Mojue would definitely not let him off. At this moment, all he wants is for his brother to recover quickly. Unintentionally, he fell asleep in front of Shuo's bed. Shuo smelled Mojue's pheromones and suddenly opened his eyes. "Water, I want water." Hearing Shuo's voice, Mojue woke up instantly. He hurried to get him water. Suddenly, Mojue felt a sharp pain, emanating from his gland. "It feels like something is rampaging inside me, as if it wants to burst out, along with an urge to kill." Mojue felt that he was about to lose control of himself, and if this continues, he might hurt Shuo. If this continues, it will hurt Shuo, so he hurriedly ran out of the room. Shuo didn't know what had happened, only hearing the door slam shut. In another room, Mojue fell to the ground in pain, continually exuding pheromones. Shuo smelled a strong alpha pheromone accompanied by intense emotional fluctuations. It seemed Mojue had undergone differentiation. Considering his own weakened state, if Mojue lost control and went berserk, he definitely wouldn't be able to match him. He needed to leave the room immediately. Just as Shuo struggled to get up and prepare to leave, he suddenly heard the door to another room open. He saw Mojue with vines waving all over his body, staring at him coldly. After Shuo was injured, he was easily controlled by the newly differentiated Alpha Mojue. At this moment, Mojue was covered in vines. Shuo immediately recognized that he had differentiated into an alpha. Knowing he wasn't a match for him now, Shuo turned around to escape. Mojue gently moved his fingers behind him, and the vines began to wriggle towards Shuo, wrapping around him. The next second, Shuo was pulled back onto the bed. Shuo quickly kicked him, but was no match for Mojue. Looking at his state, he seems to be in the early stages of differentiation, with a pheromone burst. In desperation, Shuo slapped Mojue, stunning him instantly, wondering if she hit too hard. She quickly shook him to bring him back to his senses while he was still dazed. Seizing the opportunity, Shuo got up and tied him up as Mojue struggled continuously. He kept releasing pheromones, causing Shuo to start feeling dizzy and then weak, eventually collapsing. Feeling that something strange was starting to happen, Shuo realized it was the due period. At this moment, the pheromones also began to overflow uncontrollably. Mojue grabbed her, preventing her from leaving. Just then, the gatekeeper outside heard the noise and rushed in. He walked in on this awkward scene. Mojue immediately released his pheromones, subduing the two gatekeepers. No wonder, such a high concentration of pheromones, even Shuo can't stand it, let alone them. Shuo quickly reaches out to comfort Mojue. You guys exit first. I can handle it. The administrators are stunned on the spot. Such heavy pheromones, is Officer Shuo going to handle it alone? Seeing the menacing Mojue, the two of them had no choice but to obediently obey. Mojue forcefully closes the door with the vines. Now his strength has also greatly increased. At this moment, Shuo begins to release pheromones to soothe. Seizing the opportunity, he directly strikes down with a palm, finally calming him down. The two outside the door are still eavesdropping. Since this is Mojue's second differentiation and it coincides with his sensitive period, Shuo decides to take him to isolation. After the doctor diagnoses Shuo, he also hands over Mojue's medical report. The anesthetic and the residual gland-suppressing drugs in Mojue's body have caused side effects, so this led to his abnormal behavior. Unexpectedly, Mojue had taken gland-suppressing drugs. 7 days later, Shuo's body had mostly recovered. Yunzhou still hovers around him as usual. I'm serious. Would you consider giving me a chance to pursue you? And this scene was just witnessed by Mojue, who had just arrived. Mojue quickly stepped forward, called brother, and shoved Yunzhou aside. Yunzhou also sensed Mojue's hostility. Since they had something to discuss, Yunzhou didn't linger. After sending him off, Mojue wondered why he was here, even though Shuo said he was visiting. Mojue still felt things weren't that simple. At that moment, Shuo asked how much Mojue remembered about that night. The sudden question stunned Mojue. After hesitating for a while, he told Shuo he didn't remember anything. Faced with Shuo's persistent questioning, Mojue started acting dumb. Did I do something bad to you that night, brother? Shuo tactically coughed, saying the doctor wanted him to ask. He felt it was better Mojue didn't remember because it would be quite awkward otherwise. In fact, Mojue clearly remembered every expression and movement of Shuo at that time. Shuo's adoptive father turned out to be his superior. This visit to the base was also to rekindle their past. Shuo brought a collar, telling Mojue it was a unique tracking and monitoring device of the base. Once the wearer's anger level exceeds the maximum, it will automatically release an electric current to suppress them. No matter how high their gland level is, it cannot compete with it. Now you have two choices, wear it and stay at the base, or before Shuo could say the second option. Mojue immediately picked up the monitor and put it on. Seeing this, Shuo respected his choice, and then prepared to take him to meet his foster father. The people in the management room said the foster father had applied for a visit today. Thinking that it has been half a year since he entered the base, a guardian indeed could apply for a visit, but there was a trace of unease. On the other side, the foster father was already waiting early. Shuo brought Mojue to his foster father's side. Mojue was very polite and immediately called out, Dad, Fumingzi, who told them they were 1 minute and 43 seconds late, feeling that as agents, they really had no sense of time. Shuo directly approached to take the cigarette from his mouth and even wanted to fine him. The next second, Fumingzi directly handed them each a VIP card, saying, take this pocket money and help your dad pay the fine. If it's not enough, just say so. Teasing these two kids was really interesting, but he was here for something even more important. Shuo immediately guessed that he was going to find the colonel, so he asked Mojue to go back to the dormitory first while he accompanied him. Fu Mingze, Fu's father, went outside and looked around, thinking that the colonel's office should be in this direction. Just then, he saw Shuo catching up. Shuo hoped he could explain why he sent Mojue to the base behind his back. Fu Mingze told him that a good talent like Mojue should be handed over to the country. Shuo immediately saw through him, realizing he was clearly thinking about Colonel Yan Jian. You sent Mojue to the base just to wait for today, right? Fu Mingze felt wronged, saying, if you were willing to help me, I wouldn't have had to go through all this trouble. Besides, it was that kid's idea, which means he wanted to enter the base himself. Shuo was greatly shocked upon hearing this. It turns out that day, Mojue found the photo in Fu Mingze's room, and he had seen that person before in his father's files. It was Shuo's direct superior. At this moment, Fu Mingze discovered him and asked him to put the photo down. Mojue, being very smart, immediately guessed the relationship between Fu's father and the person in the photo, and he was certainly eager to meet him. So, she suggested to Uncle Fu to send her to the base. Knowing it was Mojue's idea to enter the base, Shuo began to doubt how much of what he had said before was true, and how much was false. Fu Mingze was not interested in Mojue's real purpose. Now, all he wanted was to find Colonel Yan Jian. Shuo was speechless. It had already been 10 years. The crescent moon is speechless. It's been 10 years. Does this entanglement still make sense? As soon as he entered the office, Fu Mingze forcefully kissed the colonel. But the next second, he was slapped so hard he fell to the ground. The colonel was very angry and scolded him furiously. Fu Mingze quickly tried to comfort him, but not seriously. The colonel solemnly explained to him that they had already broken up. But Fu Mingze expressed that he had not agreed, still displaying the same old attitude. The colonel then pointed a gun at his chest. Come any closer and I'll end you. With no other option, Fu Mingze had to show weakness and surrender. After all these years, you really haven't changed at all. But your physique seems even better than before. As soon as he finished speaking, he received another slap. Stop imagining things in your mind. Faced with the colonel's threats, Fu Mingze actually enjoyed it, but the colonel wasn't surprised at all by his reaction. Get ready, let's punish him. Fu Mingze, do you want to? Unexpectedly, it's just executing a task. It turns out you can pretend to be lovers with your brother. Hearing the colonel say this, Fu Mingze starts fantasizing again. It seems pretty good. He also wants to try it here, but the colonel doesn't want to deal with him. Office play? The deputy CEO should find his beloved Omega instead. Seeing the colonel about to leave, Fu Mingze persistently bothers him, but the colonel's heart has already been deeply hurt by him. Suddenly shaking off his hand, Fu Mingze with a look of deep affection, I have never betrayed our feelings, nor have I ever thought of betraying. Before he could finish, the colonel interrupts, I saw it with my own eyes. Do you think I'm blind? Fu Mingze sighs helplessly, quickly releasing calming pheromones. But the next second, the colonel grabs his neck, take back your disgusting pheromones. Don't be disgusting. Seeing the colonel's fangs come out, Fu Mingze quickly apologized and retracted his pheromones, but the colonel still wouldn't let him touch him. He turned around and started to leave. Seeing him staggering, Fu Mingze realized it was because his emotions were too intense, causing his susceptibility period to come early. The colonel hurriedly searched for inhibitors. Unexpectedly, after 10 years, he still didn't trust him. So Fu Mingze decided to use his own way to make him obedient. He then began releasing seductive pheromones. In the colonel's memory, Fu Mingze's pheromones used to smell like black tea, but now there was also a hint of lemon scent. Before he could react, Fu Mingze pulled him close. On the other side, Shuo was a bit worried, not knowing what Fu Mingze was talking about with the colonel, as he hadn't come out yet. Mojue thought they might be catching up after 10 years. Given Shuo's understanding of Fu Mingze, this guy definitely wasn't there to catch up. Unable to rest easy, he decided to go check it out. Mojue immediately followed. After being angrily scolded by the colonel, Fu Mingze became even more agitated. Shuo, a bit worried, knocked on the door outside. In the end, Fu Mingze was kicked out by the colonel. After he left, the colonel quickly injected himself with an inhibitor. After coming out, Fu Mingze gave each of these two a big bump. Your pocket money for next month is gone. He was really infuriated by these two troublemakers. Mojue was puzzled, wondering what exactly made Father Fu so angry inside. Shuo, you seem to have guessed something. Don't ask too many questions about adult matters. Mojue quickly said he would turn 18 in a month. So Shuo asked him what he wanted for his birthday. Mojue told him there was nothing special he wanted. In fact, what he wanted was Shuo. Just then, they heard the colonel inside calling for Shuo. When Shuo went in, the colonel immediately assigned him a task. A batch of illegal drugs has entered the market through the East Port. Take 2 rookies to assist Section Chief Jiang. This mission requires undercover work. Remember to apply for funding. The mark on your neck, Shuo became more convinced of his suspicions. At the ball, Yiling and Yunzhou teamed up and pretended to be a couple. This time, Shuoyue's partner is exactly Mojue. Hearing that Shuoyue wants him to take over, Mojue panicked instantly, and then carefully pressed on. When Shuoyue was showing the invitation, Mojue was so stiff that he dared not move at all. The receptionist found it very strange, asking, "Is this gentleman your partner? You two don't seem very intimate." Mojue felt something was wrong, thinking, "This is bad, I'm too nervous. Am I going to be exposed?" Mojue recognized the person harboring ill intentions towards Shuoyue. He immediately decided to teach him a lesson. The receptionist doubted they were a couple because they weren't acting intimately enough. So, Shuoyue simply pulled Mojue over and kissed him in front of the receptionist. So it's a dominant omega and a submissive alpha. After watching for a while, they were told to leave their electronic devices here and then they could enter. Shuoyue told Mojue that Yunzhou and Yiling had already gone to find the location of the hidden potion. At this moment, Mojue hadn't recovered from the previous moment. The security saw someone coming through the surveillance, and immediately went out to tell them that this area is for office use only, and guests are not allowed to enter at will. Shuoyue quickly said he had taken the wrong way. While he was talking to the security guard, Mojue secretly climbed up from behind. Shuoyue tried to buy him some time. After sneaking into the control room, Mojue quickly searched through the documents. In order to draw the security guard away, Shuoyue lied to him that the elevator door couldn't be opened. Seeing how handsome he looked, the security guard didn't suspect him and decided to go check it out with him. At this moment, Mojue gave the OK sign from behind, and Shuoyue quickly ended the conversation. On Yunzhou and Yiling's side, the other party wanted them to pay first, and then they would be taken to inspect the goods. Seeing the stalemate situation, Yiling launched into a coquettish mode, saying this was too insincere. Didn't they want to cooperate with him? Yunzhou smoothly picked up his cue. Then he got up and took him away. Unexpectedly, those people didn't stand up to stop them. It seems they still had doubts. At the party, Shuoyue and Mojue were dancing. Suddenly, Mojue spotted the target. The foreigner behind is the seller. Shuoyue asked Mojue to hand him over during the dance switch. But Mojue was somewhat worried. Shuoyue wondered what he was doing. Watching Shuoyue's shy demeanor, Mojue told him that this way, he could precisely locate him within 3 kilometers. Although it sounded reasonable, it still felt a bit strange. With the change of music inside, the two coordinated well and then Shuoyue approached the seller. The man leered at Shuoyue, knowing he came here alone, he immediately invited him upstairs. Shuoyue stated he only drinks 82 Lafite Rothschild. The man smiled slightly, saying it was quite fortunate as he just happened to have a bottle. At this moment, Mojue noticed their intimate scene and began to look gloomy. Yiling and Yunzhou had already left the room and were in the corridor now. Seeing they hadn't caught up yet, Yiling thought the mission was about to fail, but the next second those people chased out. Wait, get the money ready, I'll take you to the warehouse to check the goods. Yunzhou and Yiling smiled at each other. At the Shuoyue side, guards stood at the door of the room, thinking from the noises inside that they were having too much fun, not knowing that their boss had already been subdued by Shuoyue. When they heard the alarm, they quickly drew their guns and rushed in. Suddenly, vines appeared behind them and entangled them. It turned out that Mojue had arrived in time and activated his skill. He dealt with them in a moment. The man spat out the cloth in his mouth. Those 2 buyers tonight, they're your companions, right? This alarm system connects to all my men's phones. By now, your companions must have been torn to pieces by my men, he said. Worried, Shuoyue decided to go help and asked Mojue to stay here and wait for the city security bureau to arrive. After Shuoyue left, Mojue turned back and glanced at the man, thinking about how he dared to be so rude to Shuoyue just now. Today, for the mission, the suppressor around his neck had also been temporarily removed. Seeing Mojue slowly approaching, the man panicked. What do you want to do? Mojue, on his birthday. Finally, I confessed to Shuoyue. When Shuoyue returned with people from the city security bureau, he found it strange what was wrong with that person's hand. Mojue quickly said it was because he tried to escape, so they had to stop him by force. Shuoyue believed him without much thought. That day was Mojue's birthday. Everyone came to his house to celebrate. Seeing the colonel there made Fu Mingzi very happy. He went up to try to kiss him. The colonel told him to be mindful of their influence in front of the juniors. So, Fu Mingzi took him somewhere else to catch up. The juniors behind them were all stunned, gossiping that the Colonel and President Fu were a couple. At this time, Yunzhou also came with a gift, but Mojue didn't seem to welcome him. Yunzhou felt a bit awkward and said he was there on behalf of the City Security Bureau. It was clear that Mojue still harbored a lot of hostility towards him. Shuo told Mojue that a gift had been prepared for him upstairs. When they arrived in the room, Shuo took out the gift she had prepared. "You've grown a lot taller after differentiation. I've had a new suit tailored for you, try it on." As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Mojue staring at her intensely. Thinking he liked the outfit she was wearing, Shuo started to take it off to give to him, because it was the latest from last season. She thought if Mojue liked it, she would buy him a new one later. Somewhat helplessly, Mojue said that wasn't what he meant, then his cheeks blushed slightly. "Since it's a gift, it's more meaningful if I do it myself." Seeing his recent behavior, Shuo felt it was a bit strange. Could he really like me? Let's find out. So she put her clothes back on and then asked Mojue if he wanted her to undress herself. Mojue slowly approached and carefully started to unbutton her clothes, while desperately trying to control his impulses. "Brother, you wouldn't think I just want your clothes, right?" As he spoke, he began to release pheromones, confirming Shuo's suspicions. It seems Mojue indeed harbored such feelings for her. Despite it being 21 years since the last occurrence, the moment she smelled Mojue's pheromones, her estrus was triggered. Earlier, Shuo asked Yunzhou to buy an inhibitor. At this moment, he has arrived. Still on the stairs, he heard Mojue's voice saying, "Just give me the stuff. All our bedroom doors have fingerprint locks, you can't get in." Yunzhou didn't know what to say for a moment. Mojue directly stepped forward and snatched the inhibitor from his hand. Then he coldly told him he could leave. Unexpectedly, Yunzhou was so considerate. Besides the inhibitor, there were also donuts in the bag. Shuo's test was confirmed at this moment. A few minutes ago, Mojue took the inhibitor Yunzhou brought and returned to the room. Shuo was about to reach out to take it, but Mojue avoided him. "Brother, I like you." Hearing this, Shuo was momentarily stunned. So Mojue repeated it again. Shuo was frozen on the spot, not knowing what to say. Watching Mojue slowly approach, Shuo kept retreating. Mojue told him that if he hated it, he could just push him away, yet Shuo still seemed somewhat resistant. Mojue asked if he hated him and said if so, he would leave now and disappear from his sight forever. At this moment, Shuo was very conflicted, wondering if they could really develop such a relationship. At this point, Mojue put down the bag and turned to walk towards the door. After some hesitation, Shuo decided not to care too much and just let out a ha. Mojue was pinned against the wall, and as they looked into each other's eyes, Shuo felt that whether it was true attraction or just a match of pheromones, he wanted to follow his heart. He then told Mojue not to regret it. Mojue kissed him without hesitation. "How could I regret it? I've been waiting for this moment for a long time." Meanwhile, Shuo teased him about how just a kiss could energize him so much. Mojue blushed at his words, surprised at how flirtatious he could be. He wondered if Shuo had done this sort of thing with others before and wanted to take things further. But Shuo told him there were still people downstairs. Mojue playfully insisted it didn't matter. The house is soundproof. Just as Shuo worried there were no donuts, the bag next to him suddenly fell, spilling out a box of donuts. Mojue used minds to pick it up. I must say, Chief Jiang is really thoughtful. After practicing sentences with turning the clouds and rain for 3 hours, the older brother was so tired he collapsed. Thankfully, the younger brother was in excellent physical condition and carried the already asleep Shuo to bed. Downstairs, Yiling and Yunzhou were still enjoying their video games. After a few rounds, Yiling lost every game. "I could only awkwardly admit I'm not very good at this." At this time, Yunzhou realized that, caught up in playing games with Yiling, now more than 3 hours had passed. So he let them continue playing and went upstairs to check, wondering how Shuo was doing by now. Suddenly seeing Mojue coming downstairs, Yunzhou was curious why Shuo didn't come down with him. Just as he was about to check, Mojue stopped him. "He's tired and sleeping, it's not convenient for you to see him." Yunzhou looked puzzled. What did he do to get tired? Mojue told him it was thanks to what he bought. As he spoke, he pulled down his collar. The moment Yunzhou saw the hickey on Mojue's neck, he instantly understood what had happened. Originally, that thing was bought for himself, but it ended up benefiting that kid. Furious, he angrily grabbed Mojue's collar. "He's your brother. How could you take advantage of him?" Mojue grabbed his hand with a mischievous smile. "With my brother's strength, if he didn't want it, do you think I could have succeeded?" Hearing this, Yunzhou didn't want to say anything more. After going downstairs, he left alone. His lonely figure just happened to be noticed by Yiling nearby. Mojue returned to the room and immediately lay down beside Shuo. At this moment, Shuo slowly opened his eyes. After getting up, he felt sore all over. Recalling what happened yesterday, his face turned red with shame. He would rather have Mojue fight him with swords and spears, regardless of who won or lost. No matter who lives or dies, all grievances were to be wiped clean, but the current developments have been completely unexpected. Uncertain about how to face him in the future, when I reached out to touch him, I saw him smile slightly. Then he directly grabbed my hand. "Good morning, big brother," Shuo somewhat awkwardly responded to him. Seeing that his brother was finally awake, Mojue decided to thoroughly check if his brother was feeling unwell anywhere, but Shuo was somewhat resistant. Mojue immediately turned into a pitiful little puppy. "Brother, don't you like it?" Unexpectedly, the tail of a white dragon Omega can only be maintained in water. The more the younger brother rubbed, the more overbearing he became. After an intense battle, Mojue wanted to continue, but Shuo felt tired and wanted to take a bath. At this time, Mojue was like a pitiful little puppy. Shuo was speechless, making it seem like he was the one who had been wronged, when it was actually himself who was about to break his back. But now he had no strength, so he let Mojue carry him. Hearing his brother's request, Mojue immediately perked up, placed Shuo in the bathtub, and then washed up beside him. Turning her head, she saw the tail of Shuo and asked her brother if she could touch it. Seeing his approval, Mojue then crouched down to feel it carefully, finding it smooth and slightly cool. She really liked it and asked Shuo how it felt to touch. At that moment, Mojue's face was already blushing. "It feels very nice. I really like it. Can I keep it next time?" Upon hearing this, Shuo was stunned, thinking it would be nice if there was a big mirror here. Mojue wondered what he needed a big mirror for. Then Shuo lifted his chin, telling him that the tail could only maintain its form in water. If here, he could see his reflection in the mirror. Hearing this, Mojue became interested and asked how about the mirror over the sink. Shuo quickly said he was hungry and asked her to make breakfast, but Mojue wanted to play a game first as Auntie would make breakfast and the timing was just right. Then Shuo told her that Auntie was off today. With no other choice, Mojue had to obediently go make breakfast. At this point, Fu Mingzi also came down from upstairs. Shuo wonders what happened to his arm. Fu Mingzi sighs helplessly and says the conversation broke down. "It was your colonel who hit me. What else do you think happened?" Mojue teases from the side that the colonel has quite a temper. Fu Mingzi immediately defends, "Who told you that? He's very gentle, okay? Especially when he's looking at me." At this moment, Shuo receives a call from the colonel because there have been multiple alphas and omegas going berserk without reason in Gojo City. They need to go on a mission together. Father Fu reminds them to be careful. Mojue quickly gets up, wanting to go with them. Shuo tells him that everything will be fine and that he should enjoy this hard-earned vacation. Watching Shuo's back, Mojue looks worried. Upon learning that his wife and son are in danger, Father Fu was ready to take action. His subordinate comes to report to Mojue. Regarding his father's death, it was indeed not as simple as a suicide. The details have not been uncovered yet. However, one thing is certain, his father and dad were not as loving as they appeared. Mr. Lan, his father, was coerced from the start, following the advice of his subordinates. Mojue thought of the time when he was a child and discovered the wound on his father's hand. Just as his father was about to explain, his grandfather came over and said, "You are still a child and wouldn't understand." Mojue had seen those wounds more than once. He didn't understand before, but now he realizes there must be a reason. If it weren't for being imprisoned and tortured, how could those scars have been left? So he let his subordinates continue the investigation and told them not to do anything unnecessary before he returned. Upon hearing this, the subordinate felt wronged. "Hichu is cleaning up your people everywhere. There are also Sector 101 and the City Security Bureau. We have a hard time dealing with them, let alone having the energy to do anything else." Speaking of Hichu, Mojue certainly wouldn't let him go. The subordinate was still looking forward to Moju's return to revitalize the Knight Riders Alliance. Regarding this, Mojue said he had his plans and would inform him of the meeting place next time. "I remember you are from Gojo City." Speaking of this, the subordinate wanted to complain because he hadn't been home for more than a decade and took a trip back yesterday. He encountered a mutant who, like a madman, killed anyone he saw. If he hadn't run fast, he might not have survived to come here. Mojue couldn't help but start worrying about the terrible situation there. On this side, Fu Mingzi also received the news and prepared to set off after getting organized. There was chaos in Gojo City. Mutants were crazily killing. A girl tripped over a rock while escaping. Just as she was about to meet a dire fate, Shuo arrived in time to block the attack. The huge ice wall bought everyone time to escape. Shuo quickly organized the evacuation. Then he informed the colonel that he would enter the lab to look for clues. The colonel's side was currently holding the upper hand. He reminded Shuo to be careful. Originally, he was reporting to the colonel, but the voice coming through the earpiece made Shuo blush. After Mojue and the colonel arrived in Guizhou City, it turned out that the situation here was indeed grim. The colonel was surrounded by a group of mutants. Suddenly, he noticed someone intervening nearby. It was Fu Mingzi. "Weren't you pretty ruthless when hitting me? It's only been one night, how come you've turned weak?" The colonel told him that these people might still regain consciousness, so don't kill them. Upon hearing about such a battle, Fu Mingzi felt very constrained. The colonel told Mojue that Shuo was in the lab and asked him to go support her immediately. In the lab, Shuo was chasing someone. The man seized the opportunity to press the door lock, and as the door opened, a group of mutants inside became restless and immediately launched an attack on Shuo. Unfazed, Shuo raised her tranquilizer gun and began shooting. A few were hit on the spot, while others, more agile, quickly moved behind her. Although Shuo switched to defense, she was still pushed back several meters. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her waist. It turned out to be Mojue. His vines could attack the group, and he quickly subdued them. Mojue hurriedly checked if his brother was alright. Shuo said she was fine, but someone had run off with the data and they needed to chase after them. In the meantime, the colonel instructed the others to return to base. However, Fu Mingzi next to them started to get restless again, just as Shuo sent a message indicating that Fu Mingzi was still unwilling to stop. The colonel pushed him away, asking for a report from Shuo about his situation. Shuo told the colonel that he couldn't find any usable information and that the person had escaped. However, Mojue had marked him, so as long as he appears within a certain range within 15 days, they could find him. On the other hand, Fu Mingzi became increasingly bold, prompting the colonel to punch him directly. The sound from that side was directly transmitted to Shuo through the earpiece, causing Mojue and Shuo to freeze on the spot. Just as Shuo was about to say something, Mojue held his hand. "Brother, I want a kiss too. It's such a beautiful moonlight, it would be a pity not to kiss." To verify Shuo's feelings for him, Mojue decided to mark him. After hanging up the phone with the colonel, Mojue couldn't help himself. In the midst, Shuo quickly stopped Mojue, telling him it was already late. Shuo was amused by his antics and still had to go back to write the mission report, asking little Ju to bear with it for a while. Then, he went back to give the completed report to the colonel. The sharp colonel immediately sensed the pheromones radiating from Shuo, inside and out. The pheromones that Shuo exudes from inside out made him ask if he and Mojue were. Seeing Shuo's reaction, sure enough, as the colonel guessed, Shuo had no choice but to admit. The colonel asked them how they would end things if they were really together. Shuo was silent for a while. "That's a matter for the future. I owe him for his father's death. To refuse and hurt him, I cannot do it." The colonel reminded Shuo of their vendetta over killing each other's fathers, hoping he could handle it soberly and rationally. Shuo also assured the colonel that if Mojue sought revenge on him in the future, he would accept it calmly. Their conversation at this moment was overheard by Mojue outside the door. "So he agreed to me out of guilt, not really liking me." As soon as Shuo came back, Mojue couldn't hold back anymore. Shuo just let him be, then Mojue confessed to him. It was so unexpected, when asked in return. Shuo didn't know how to answer. Mojue sensed something was wrong. Is it hard for him to answer this question? Shuo tries hard to avoid the topic. Why suddenly so sentimental? That's not your style. Mojue counterasks, then what style am I? Not getting an answer from Shuo, Mojue is clearly unhappy. He decides to bite his gland. Shuo snaps back to reality, realizing if he knew his father was killed by himself, he would try to break free immediately. But how could Mojue let him go? He injects pheromones directly, and instantly, his pheromones begin to spread inside Shuo. After a while, Mojue slowly lets go, only trying because he couldn't let go of his feelings. So he really doesn't love me. Could it be that the only thing between us is the bond of patricide? Then he soothes Shuo, saying it's just a temporary mark. In fact, Mojue is not satisfied with just that. What he wants is for Shuo to belong to him forever. On the colonel's office side, Fu Mingzi came to him again with a bouquet of roses. The colonel's attitude towards him is still cold. How did you get in? It's not yet the day for family visits. Fu Mingzi mentions that their weapons and equipment are too poor. So they sponsored hundreds of guns and 20 fighter jets, then their colonel gave himself a VIP commute card. Even so, the colonel still didn't welcome him, and then Fu Mingzi started his usual antics. All smooth talk. At that moment the colonel thought about hurrying Fu Mingzi up that day. Suddenly his phone rang. It seemed like an emergency. After hanging up, Fu Mingzi told the colonel that his grandfather was critically ill and he needed to go to the hospital. The colonel directly told him to get lost. At this point, Fu Mingzi was still apologizing to the colonel for that day's incident, but the colonel told him there was nothing to be sorry about, acknowledging his own awareness. Between me and your father, you will always choose him. It will be the same even 10 years later. Seeing Shuo and Yunzhou tussling, Mojue got jealous again. 10 years ago, when Fu Mingzi's friends heard that his dad got him a mistress, they asked him what Yan Ziyin was planning to do, seeing him seemingly deep in thought. A friend advised him to just have some fun. You'll inherit the family business in the future. Yan Ziyin is an alpha and can't give you children. It's not worth going against your father for him. Fu Mingzi saw that he was acting as an emissary for the old man, so he asked his friend to go back and tell the old man to rest assured that he and Yan Ziyin were indeed just having fun. Once the novelty wore off, he'd dump him. And all of these words were overheard by Yan Ziyin outside. At this moment, Fu Mingzi explained to him that at the time, there were informants for the old man in the private box, and the things he said were just for show and not genuine. At this point, the colonel stood up excitedly, grabbed his collar, and said, "But you marked that boy. Was that also just for show?" Fu Mingzi asked him, "Do I really seem that contemptible to you?" The colonel replied, "Yes, I don't want to hear any more of your explanations." Meanwhile, at the hospital, Yunzhou was excited and wanted to leave. His subordinates quickly stopped him, wanting him to wait until Officer Shuo arrived to make a decision. At this moment, Shuo and Mojue arrived at the hospital. Shuo was puzzled about what had happened. Beside him, Mojue was very annoyed, saying, "Everyone called my brother over, thinking something big had happened. This person is perfectly fine." The subordinates told Shuo that Hichu had injured the boss and took away Su Cixin. Shuo didn't understand why Hichu took Su Cixin. Yunzhou said that he never wanted Cixin to work for Hichu. His personality was too soft and trusting. At that time, he said he liked the job, and there was nothing Yunzhou could do. Later, Hichu did something, and the two got together. Hichu was a playboy, and it was just a matter of time before they broke up. After deciding to break up, Cixin left the He group. Later, Hichu met Cixin again. Yunzhou became more and more agitated and wanted to go save him immediately. Shuo quickly stepped forward to hold him back, urging him to calm down and recover first. She would negotiate with Hichu. Watching this, Mojue found Yunzhou truly annoying. Outside, Mojue asked his brother if they couldn't send someone else. He didn't want him to take risks for another man. To cure his own gland, Hichu had set his sights on Shuo. Seeing Mojue unwilling to let him go, Shuo told him that Su Cixin was Yunzhou's only family, and there could be no mistakes. She had to go in person. Since her brother insisted on going, Mojue told her the reason for Hichu's gland injury. Tell him that the reason Hichu got hurt was actually to shield Su Cixin from the bullet. Hichu's feelings for Su Cixin are extraordinary. He definitely wouldn't harm him. Also, remind brother that if Hichu doesn't release him, don't use force. After all, that's his territory. I'm afraid he might go crazy and do something to hurt him. I never expected that after so many years of missions, this is the first time someone has been so worried and nagged at me, and it's my younger brother. Don't worry, I'll handle it carefully. Mojue is still somewhat worried. After all, Hichu's gland was injured because of him. He thinks Hichu might say something unfavorable to him. Brother, no matter what I have done in the past or what kind of person I was, now and in the future, I only listen to you and only want to become the person you hope I will be. Shuo looked at the worried Mojue in front of him. I know, I believe you. Even though our little brother has grown taller, inside he is still a child with no sense of security. Watching his brother's back, Mojue always felt that letting him leave was a mistake. Meanwhile, Shuo arrived at Hichu's company. He didn't stop Shuo from taking the person away. However, before he left, he mentioned Mojue. I've dealt with Mojue many times. With his intelligence, do you think he knows that you are the one who killed his father? Shuo didn't want to listen to his nonsense. After taking Su Ci's heart, he left. After they left, Hichu's gland doctor, Luo Yu, came out to tell him about a more reliable method to treat his glands, which is to have a child with a high-level omega. The success rate of gland surgery for direct relatives is higher, and the rejection rate is lower. The child born in the last quarter moon has a 95% chance of having high-grade glands. Hichu felt it was not feasible. If I touch him, Base 101 won't let me off. Luo Yu told him they could find someone to do it. For example, the young master of the C family. Hichu shook his head. After all, CMOU is too cunning, it's not realistic to use him. Then, Luo Yu took out a chip. This was when Mojue had just arrived at the 101 base. He went to the hospital for gland development, and the doctor took this out of his gland. Once you see the content, you will know that CMOju is the best candidate for utilization. When Shuo returned to the database, it turned out that CMOju had known from the beginning that I was the one who killed his father. He has been deceiving me all this time. Hichu agreed to return the chip to Moju. But the condition is to get Shuo. After returning and seeing the files, it was just as Hichu said, Moju had long known that I killed his father. Now that he has gone to such lengths to get close to me and has formed such a relationship, is it really just for revenge? Shuo couldn't figure it out. Scenes of being together with him began to flash in his mind. If it was for revenge, did it really need to go to this extent? At that moment, he heard his phone ring. It was a message from the colonel. Before leaving, Shuo placed the file on the table, not knowing exactly what he was expecting. After a while, Moju came to Shuo's room and discovered the file. Seeing it here means Shuo has seen it already. Just a little more time and I could have completely won him over. Why did it have to be now? Suddenly, Moju realizes that his brother knew he had the password to his room, meaning he intended for him to see this file. What would he want me to do? Should I confront him openly? But knowing my brother's personality, once I confess, there would be no turning back. I don't want our relationship to end this way. At this moment, he receives a call from Hichu. Moju directly asks him what he told Shuo. Hichu chuckles, from your tone, it seems my words had an effect. You don't need to be distressed. Come to me, I can help you. After being rejected by Moju, Hichu then brings up his father's death. He tells him that he happens to have some information. Then he talks about his last visit to the hospital for gland inspection, where the doctor performed a minor surgery and actually removed a small chip from his body. Inside it was a video left by his father. Hearing this, Moju is greatly shocked. I'll decide the meeting place, then we go to a bar, and what I see inside is actually my own father. Moju can hardly believe it. At this moment, Hichu turns off the video. I didn't lie to you, right? This might be the last video of your dad before he passed away. Moju asks him what he really wants. Hichu doesn't beat around the bush, it's simple, hand over Shuo to me. It's time to resolve the misunderstanding with your brother. I didn't expect Hichu's condition to actually be Shuo. Moju wonders, what does he want Shuo for? Hichu explains that he possesses something he wants. If you want revenge, let me get that thing first, then I'll give him back to you. By then, you can do whatever you want with him. You're always a ticking time bomb for the base. Once things start to ferment, do you think they'll let you go? Making someone disappear from this world silently is what the base does best. After hearing his proposal, Moju agrees, then let's cooperate. It's also time to make an end. The next day, when on a mission, Moju communicates to Shuo, I smelled Hichu, there's a scent left by my skills on him. He must have seen the mysterious person who escaped from the lab last time. Just now, the colonel also mentioned that the only link to the lab was the He Corporation. But Moju clearly saw the files, so why could he act as if nothing had happened? If this was a trap he had set, still, Shuo planned to go. Whether it was a trap or not didn't matter anymore. Yiling asked if he should follow, but Shuo told him there was no need. Stay here on standby. I will personally go to meet Moju. Thinking that it was time to end things between them, before Shuo arrived, Moju aimed a gun at his own shoulder. Then pulled the trigger, making it look as if he had been shot. This should add a degree of credibility. After a while, Shuo arrived, still very cautious. Come out, I'm here. Hearing his brother's voice, Moju then staggered into view. Seeing Moju wounded, Shuo was very surprised. Moju said that he was shot by Hichu while tracking him. As he was about to fall, Shuo immediately lowered his guard and hurried forward to catch him. Seizing the moment, Moju stepped forward and gave him a kiss, pushing the medicine in his mouth into Shuo's. Unexpectedly, Moju actually handed Shuo over to Hichu. Learning Hichu's intention, Shuo panicked. Shuo woke up in a daze, feeling dizzy and realized he was tied up in a strange place. At this moment, Hichu came in with some food. Yo, awake? Want something to eat? Shuo angrily asked what he had done to him. Hichu revealed a sinister smile and stepped forward. Don't be nervous. I just injected you with some medicine so you won't have the strength to run away, Hichu said, responding to Shuo's question. Both Moju and Hichu felt sorry for him. It seems you are too immersed in playing the role of a brother and forgot whose child Moju is. Then, Shuo recalled that previously, when Mojue approached him, he took the opportunity to feed himself the medicine. He should have shot him at that time. He didn't know when he started to be so emotional. Could it be that he really fell in love with him? Feeling Hichu's restless hand, Shuo struggled hard. Let go of me, Hichu. Don't be the second Sixian. Don't try to challenge the authority of the base. Hichu was not at all flustered by Shuo's warning. When you carry my child, I will naturally let you go. On the colonel's side, a subordinate delivered the record of Shuo's movements before he went missing. Before coming to see you, he went to the archives room and took away the supplementary report on the C case. The report was just submitted the day before yesterday. It contains the interrogation records of those 103 personnel involved in the secret case. The colonel wondered what he wanted with the supplementary report. The subordinate said he wasn't sure, but according to the archive manager, Shuo looked very upset after reading the file. The colonel couldn't sit still any longer. Although they still don't know where Mojue is, the tech department has just tracked the locator in Mojue's collar and pinpointed his location. The colonel ordered his subordinates to immediately assemble Group A and the rookie team for a mission. The mission target is Mojue. Just when the brother was about to be harmed, the younger brother arrived in time. Hichu came out of the room with a menacing look. As expected of an A-level Omega, even after being drugged, he could still resist so fiercely. He ordered his men to increase the dosage of the drug to knock him out. His subordinate told him that Dr. Luo had instructed that the drug could only be injected once a day, otherwise it would affect the chances of pregnancy. They would have to wait until tomorrow. At that moment, another subordinate brought news that Assistant Su had returned and wanted to see him. He was currently waiting for him at the company. Meanwhile, Mojue was bandaging his wound. There were still no clues and they didn't know where Hichu had taken Shuo. If he hadn't been so careless at the time, the situation wouldn't have gotten completely out of control. Just then, his phone received a message. There was already a lead. Mojue hurriedly instructed his subordinates to set off immediately. His subordinate informed him that there were not many available personnel and suggested discussing the strategy before taking action. Mojue thinks that if Hichu can hide people there, it means the safety factor is very high. Even with more people, it would be difficult to rescue them. Besides, isn't there a base? At this moment, they are definitely on their way to capture us. At this moment, they must already be on their way to catch me. As long as I lead them there, they will naturally break through the traps. I'll leave Hichu's men to them. All I need to do is get ahead of them and take Shuo away. In a daze, Shuo opened his eyes and looked around. It was no longer the previous room. The person in front of him looked very much like the mysterious man who escaped from the Gaza City laboratory. Thinking he just needed a few more minutes to regain some strength, he could fully break free from the chains. He needed to find a way to buy time. At this moment, the doctor was already preparing the anesthetic. A grade A gland is found in only 1 out of 10,000 people. If he removed it and gave it to his brother, they would definitely like it very much. Suddenly, he heard Shuo's voice behind him. In that case, your plan will be ruined. The doctor then realized that Shuo had been pretending to be unconscious. He also directly exposed him. Your goal is my grade A gland. Making me pregnant with Hichu's child was just a ruse from the beginning. Does Hichu know you're using him? The doctor chuckled. None of that matters. Speaking of which, Executor, you're so powerful. You probably don't need anesthesia. The next second, the doctor took a scalpel and was about to stab Shuo. At the critical moment, the door suddenly opened with a bang from the outside. Seeing that the situation was not right, the doctor quickly unfurled his wings and escaped through the window. Shuo looked at the person at the door. It turned out to be Mojue. Since Shuo was unwilling to listen to his explanation, Mojue decided to take a tough approach. The colonel, along with the base personnel, rushed to the place where Shuo was trapped. In a matter of minutes, they had cleared the area. At this point, a subordinate came to tell him that Mojue's location had disappeared. The colonel realized he had been used by Mojue, becoming a tool to help him crack the mechanism. Truly the son of Xian, playing such a calculated game. Yiling came running, panting. Colonel, we saw on the monitor that Mojue has taken away Big Boss Shuo. Lu Junqi and his team are tracking the car picking him up. This time, the colonel didn't hold back, issuing a Class A warrant. Mojue must be captured within 3 days. Meanwhile, Su Cixin was being tied up by Hichu. The place where Shuo was hidden is very secretive, known only to me and Luo Yu. Even if the base and the city security bureau worked together, it would be hard to find in such a short time. Previously, you wished never to see me again, yet last night you showed up voluntarily. Don't tell me it's just that simple. Su Zixin was nearly tortured to the point of breaking, but still confessed voluntarily. See, Mojue suddenly found me yesterday, asking me to help him find Shuo. Shuo has been kind to me, and he's the person my cousin likes. I couldn't refuse. So, last night after you fell asleep, I took your car keys. We found the address from the car's navigation history and sent it to see Mojue. I don't know the rest, he Chu. Upon hearing this, he immediately turned furious, accusing me of conspiring with outsiders. Xin, you have truly disappointed me. Then, he threw the remote control to the ground and stomped it to pieces. Before the power runs out, enjoy yourself. The next day, Shuo got up and Mou came over. Seeing the marks on his neck, he was utterly shocked. What did that bastard He Chu do to you? Why are there so many marks on your neck? Shuo slapped his hand away. Isn't it you who handed me over to him? Don't you know what he did to me? Mojue was momentarily speechless, but after a while, he still tried to explain that it wasn't what he thought. Then he suddenly grabbed him. You are mine. Even if his conditions are tempting, I would never give you to him. Shuo began to speak with underlying meanings. Why are you approaching me? We both know very well. What does young Master C want to play at now? Upon hearing this, Moju's heart trembled. So even now, if I try to explain, you wouldn't believe me anymore, right? If that's the case, let's do something else, he said as he pinned the person down, taking advantage of the fact that Shuo's body had not yet recovered. Moju surprisingly tied him up and forcefully kissed him. Shuo was very angry and bid him, if you want revenge, let's fight now. You don't need to beat around the bush or use these despicable methods. Moju wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and then released the vines. He quickly tied up Shuo. Your body hasn't fully recovered, you're no match for me. Moreover, when fighting with you, I prefer this. Shuo secretly gathered strength and seized the opportunity to release ice crystals. Moju, struck by the ice crystals, spat out blood on the spot, leaving Shuo somewhat shocked. Angry, Shuo confronted him. What trick are you trying to pull now? Why didn't you dodge? Stop pretending to be pitiful. Don't think I'll be fooled again. Moju looked at him passionately. I'd rather have you hit me or scold me than treat me with indifference. So, brother, can you listen to my explanation now? Then, Shuo slowly let go of Moju. Moju simply leaned on his shoulder. I know my identity has been exposed, the base won't let me go easily, so I want to take you away to a place where no one can find us to live. That day I went to meet He Chu. I smelled the scent left by my skills on him. I thought he must have seen the mysterious person who escaped from the Guozhou laboratory, so I sent my men to investigate. After some probing, my men found out that person was He Chu's attending physician. But he always appears and disappears unpredictably. Moju guessed that He Chu wanted Shuo as a bargaining chip in a deal, which certainly couldn't be unrelated to this man. However, we could also use the relationship between Luo Yu and He Chu to make the base focus their firepower on He Chu. Even if we can't completely eliminate him, we can still severely weaken him. Do you not want the video concerning Mr. Lan anymore? I've already seen part of that video. Moju could roughly guess the content, thus feeling it unnecessary to risk a deal with He Chu. And I would definitely not use my brother as a bargaining chip in the trade. Then he ordered his men to prepare a boat before the base's focus shifts to He Chu. We need to send Shuo away first. My men are worried that without substantial evidence proving Luo Yu's connection with the Guozhou laboratory, the base might not be fooled. But Moju was very clear about the danger of the laboratory. The base won't overlook any clues. It's their routine operation to rather kill wrongly than to let go. Originally, everything was going smoothly. Moju had also gained Shuo's trust, but unexpectedly at that time, he was tracked by someone sent by He Chu. Seeing his men coming over, Moju told them to proceed as planned. As soon as he got up, his men were all killed by He Chu's people, who then forcibly took Shuo from him. Because of his earlier injuries, he was momentarily helpless. Everything happened so suddenly, facing such a turn of events. Moju was extremely shocked. Since his brother was no longer willing to give him another chance, Moju decided to create his own opportunity. Seeing Shuo being captured, Moju erupted in fury. He immediately released his vine powers and attacked those people. However, the mutants were extremely agile and easily dodged Moju's attack. They counterattacked, and with his recent injuries, Moju was quickly kicked away by one of the mutants. In the end, he could only watch helplessly as they took Shuo away and followed them for a distance. But he couldn't catch up. Moju told Shuo everything that had happened, hoping he wouldn't be angry with him anymore. Thinking if what he said was true, then Luoyu was most likely the mysterious person who escaped from the lab. The mysterious person who escaped from the lab. My body hasn't fully recovered yet, and that move just now consumed a lot of energy. If we fight again, I am definitely no match for him. Thus, Shuo no longer confronted him, saying, let's act as if we haven't seen each other today. Next time we meet, I will not show you any mercy. Seeing Shuo about to leave, Mojue immediately had a grim expression. You are still going to leave? The next second he released vines to bind Shuo. Then he dragged him back. Shuo struggled desperately. Mojue, let me go. I need to go and investigate the lab incident thoroughly. Mojue forcefully held him down. I will handle this matter. Wait here for my return. Then we can leave together and live somewhere where no one knows us, okay? Shuo was very angry. You handle it? Have you forgotten that you were just tricked by Hichu? Even if you have a way to deal with Hichu, how will you evade the base's pursuit? Don't forget, you still wear the base's tracking collar. Mojue told him, I've already blocked the tracker in the collar. The base can't find us in the short term. As for Hichu, I will kill him personally. This way, he can never target you again. Shuo abruptly grabbed his collar. Stop being foolish. Neither Luoyu nor Hichu are easy to deal with. You can't handle it alone. Don't gamble with the lives of innocent people. At that moment, Mojue shed tears. If I let you go, I'll lose everything. If that's the case, why not take a gamble? The crescent moon calmed down and released him. Even if you force me to stay, I won't go with you, see Mojue. We've long had no other paths to take, but Mojue disagreed. Brother, you're wrong. If there's no path, I will make one myself, he said as he injected paralyzing pheromones into the crescent moon. The crescent moon endured the pain, tears welling up in his eyes. See Mojue, don't do this. Don't make me hate you. To relieve the symptoms, the crescent moon had no choice but to actively ask Mojue, hearing the crescent moon cry. Then Mojue stopped, seeing the crescent moon looking lonely. Continuing this would only push him further away. Then Mojue tightly embraced the crescent moon, continuously apologizing, I'm sorry, I'm just angry at myself for being useless. It's my fault that you fell into Hichu's hands, it's my fault you suffered. It's all because of me. At that moment, he felt the crescent moon's heartbeat racing. Could it be fear? Then Mojue withdrew the vines wrapping around him. Now you can go, if this is what you really want, brother. Shuo still had some doubts. Could he really let himself go so easily? But then again, it makes sense, since he is the murderer of his whole family. Parting ways like this was already the best outcome. Once outside, Shuo felt a sharp pain in his glands. His body also became restless and feverish. He had been injected with drugs earlier and had just been bitten by Mojue, now feeling utterly weak. Dizziness followed, leading him to fall into the swimming pool nearby, creating a huge splash. This immediately caught the attention of Mojue in the room. Despite falling into the water, Shuo still felt as if his body was burning. At that moment, Mojue jumped into the pool, timely rescuing him. Bro, are you okay? Shuo indicated that he was now in his heat and wanted a suppressant. Mojue told him that this was a temporary base and there were no suppressants available. It was also an hour's drive from the city. So, Shuo quickly pushed him away, but the next second, he still couldn't stand steady and fell on him, his tail growing out behind him. The most urgent thing right now is to solve this symptom. We can't worry about anything else. Didn't Mojue want to play with himself? Do it now. Mojue asked if he had done this to Hichu as well. Shuo avoided eye contact. No, he didn't have a choice. If you're not willing, you can still refuse now. Before he finished speaking, Mojue interrupted directly. No, I am very willing to serve you, brother. Shuo kept telling himself in his heart that this was just to relieve the symptoms. After tonight, everything will be over. Hearing Shuo so directly admit his feelings for him, Mojue was still a bit surprised. On the way back, reports came from his subordinates that Hichu was currently at a private hospital under the He group, but Luoyu was not by his side. Shuo came over to inquire what had happened. Mojue told him that people from the base had come over, and they were now preparing to retreat. Weren't you looking for Luoyu? I'll take you to ask Hichu directly. But Shuo wanted to go to the address by himself. Mojue told him that given his current physical condition, it was not safe to drive, and it would be better if he took him there. Shuo thought about it and agreed, as things had indeed been intense just now. However, Mojue agreed to let her go, yet he still risks to escort her personally. Being with her will soon attract the attention of the base and the security bureau. At this moment, Mojue steps forward. Letting you go doesn't mean letting go. Shuo asks him what he really wants. Mojue admits he doesn't understand himself, but one thing he's sure of is that he doesn't want to give up on him because of his father's death. He also doesn't want to end their relationship this way. Shuo warns him in advance, I won't pretend to be ignorant and continue playing house with you. After questioning Ichu, I will immediately contact the base and won't hide your whereabouts from the colonel. At this moment, Mojue directly asks him if he likes him. Shuo admits, at the beginning, it was indeed out of guilt that I wanted to make it up to you. But later, I realized it wasn't like that. I can be sure that I have grown to like you through our time together. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen to trust you again and again. Hearing his words, Mojue is somewhat surprised by his frankness. While waiting for the traffic light, Shuo continues, Mojue, whether out of guilt or affection, I have never been insincere to you. Having said all this, Mojue is even more puzzled why he refuses to leave with him. Shuo tells him, the purpose of Luoyu has not yet been clarified. As an enforcer for the base, I absolutely cannot ignore it. Also, you need time to sort out your feelings. Mojue told him that he understands. After hearing Shuoyu's words, Mojue felt that the heart that had been hanging these days finally settled down a lot. Then, arriving at the hospital, Mojue controlled everyone outside, letting his brother go in with peace of mind. Shuo opened the door. Hichu was inside. The doctor told Hichu that Assistant Su was already pregnant, for over a month now. Then Hichu asked him to leave, turned his head to look at Shuo beside him. Yo, you found me so quickly. But Officer Shuo seems to be in good spirits. Shuo replied expressionlessly, thanks to Mr. He. Hichu could also tell that he was here to settle accounts. So he asked how he intends to settle. Shuo told him he needs to understand all information about Luoyu from him. How we settle our accounts depends on how well you cooperate. In order to figure out what kind of feelings I actually have for Shuo as soon as possible, Mojue took the initiative to offer, to help him investigate the relationship between Luoyu and the research institute. After finding Hichu, Shuo directly told him Luoyu's real purpose. Although I don't have evidence right now, I can confirm that Luoyu is the mysterious person who escaped from the Guizhou City laboratory. As far as I know, He Corporation once sold a batch of medical equipment to the laboratory at a low price. If you're not being used by him, then you're helping Luoyu in what he's really planning. What Luoyu is really planning is definitely more dangerous and terrifying than the incident with the test subjects running amok and injuring people. Mr. He, you're a businessman. For the sake of the He Group, you know what choice to make. Hichu calmly sat down. Officer Shuo, you are quite adept at understanding people's minds. Before Luoyu came to me, I had altered his records. I do know a bit about his past. He is an orphan. When he was a teenager, he was adopted by the... Hearing this, Shuo thought of the brother Luoyu mentioned before and asked Hichu who the founder of the W Research Institute was. Hichu smiled, you might as well ask young Master C about that. He knows better than I do. Shuo turned and looked at Su Cixin lying there. The child in her belly is yours, right? Please take good care of her. After getting into the car, Mojue told Shuo that the founder of the research institute was Xia Yingcheng, an old acquaintance of his father, Xixian. His father had been funding the research institute's projects before his death. Shuo checked some old reports, which were almost the same as what Hichu had said. As for whether Luoyu made the test subjects on his own or with the involvement of the W Research Institute, Mojue told him, regardless of whether the institute was involved, if Luoyu really hides in the research institute after escaping, any move by the base or the city security bureau will surely alert him. The two were silent for a moment. Then Shuo told Mojue that he had to return to the base to discuss the next investigative plan with the colonel, and they would part ways here. Just as he was about to get out of the car, Mojue stopped him. Brother, no one will suspect my identity. Let me investigate. Shuo thought he was crazy. The whole country was after you, and any slight carelessness would lead to attacks from all sides. Mojue thought this was not necessarily a bad thing. Perhaps only by being in a desperate situation, surrounded by enemies, can I confront the deepest and most genuine thoughts and emotions within myself. Understanding this sooner could settle the nature of our relationship. Wouldn't that be good? Shuo grabbed his hand, instead of letting you go to your death, I might as well arrest you right now. As soon as he finished speaking, Mojue gave him a kiss. Alright, bro, are you going to arrest me now? Shuo angrily grabbed his tie. Mojue, I'm not joking with you. Mojue said he was serious too. My father, Lan Mubai, used to be a researcher at W Research Institute. He and my father met there as well. Concerning the matter about my father, I will not stand by and watch idly. Although Mojue is the most suitable person for a covert investigation, Shuo is still worried about him. At that moment, Mojue took out his cell phone. Didn't you say what Luoyu planned was very dangerous? Don't hesitate, contact the base. Tell the colonel everything you know and let them come to arrest me. Shuo hesitated, but still took the cell phone. After receiving the message, the people at the base quickly arrived. The colonel charged onto the rooftop and saw Mojue being hit by Shuo. Watching Mojue fall like this, Shuo's eyes are full of heartache. Hearing Shuo directly admitting his feelings for him, Mojue was still a bit surprised while retreating. A message from his men comes. Hichu is currently at a private hospital under his group, but Luoyu is not by his side. Shuo comes to ask what happened. Mojue tells him that people from the base have come looking and are now preparing to evacuate. You wanted to look for Luoyu, right? I'll take you directly to ask Hichu, but Shuo prefers to go to the address by himself. Mojue tells him it's not safe to drive given his current state, it's better to escort him. Shuo thinks it makes sense, indeed things were a bit intense just now. But he doesn't understand why Mojue agreed to let him go but still risks personally escorting him. Being together would quickly alert the base and the city security bureau. At this moment, Mojue steps forward. Letting you leave doesn't mean letting go. Shuo asks him what he really wants. Mojue says he's also not sure, but one thing he is certain of is that he doesn't want to give up on him because of his father's death. I don't want to end our relationship this way. Shuo told him in advance, I won't pretend to know nothing and just play house with you. After asking Hichu, I will immediately contact the base and not hide your whereabouts from the colonel. At this moment, Mojue directly asked him if he liked him. Shuo admitted that at first, he did want to make up for him out of guilt. But later, I gradually realized it's not like that. I can confirm that, slowly, through our interactions, I've grown to like you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen to trust you time and again. Hearing his words, Mojue was somewhat surprised by his frankness. While waiting for the traffic light, Shuo continued to explain to Mojue, whether out of guilt or liking, I've never been insincere with you. Now that I've said all this, Mojue couldn't understand why he wouldn't agree to leave with him. Shuo told him that the purpose of Luoyu has not been clarified yet. As an executor for the base, I absolutely cannot ignore it. Also, you need time to sort out your feelings. Mojue told him that he knew. After hearing all this from Shuo, Mojue felt that the anxiety he had been carrying these days had finally settled down quite a bit. Then, arriving at the hospital, Mojue took control of the people outside to ensure his brother could safely enter. Shuo opened the door. Hichu was inside. The doctor told Hichu that Assistant Su was already pregnant, about a month along. Then Hichu asked him to leave and turned to look at Shuo. Oh, you found me so quickly. But you seem to be in good spirits, Officer Shuo. Shuo responded expressionlessly, thanks to President He. Hichu realized that he was here to settle accounts. Hichu then asked how he intended to settle this. Shuo told him that he needed all the information on Luoyu from him. How we settle our issues depends on how well you cooperate. To figure out his feelings for Shuo, Mojue volunteered to help him investigate the relationship between Luoyu and the institute. After finding Hichu, Shuo directly revealed Luoyu's real purpose to him. Although I don't have evidence right now, I'm certain that Luoyu is the mysterious person who escaped from the Guizhou City laboratory. As far as I know, He Corporation once sold medical equipment to the lab at a low price. If you're not being used by him, then you're an accomplice. What Luoyu is truly planning is definitely more dangerous and terrifying than the incident of the experimental subject running amok and harming people. President He, you're a businessman, for the sake of He Corporation, you know what choice to make. Hichu sat down calmly. Officer Shuo, you are quite skilled at reading people. Before Luoyu came to me, I had altered his files. I indeed know a bit about his past. He was an orphan and was adopted by the founder of W Institute when he was a teenager. I've investigated this. There were also a pair of older twin brothers who were adopted with him. Hearing this, Shuo thought of the brother Luoyu had mentioned. He asked Hichu who the founder of the W Institute was. Hichu smiled. You might want to ask Master Xiao about that, he knows much more than I do. Shuo turned to look at Su Cixin lying there. The child inside her is yours, right? Please take good care of him. After getting on the car, Mojue told Shuo that the founder of the research institute is called Jiangcheng, who was an old friend of his father Xian. His father had always funded the institute's projects during his lifetime. My father has always funded projects at the institute. Shuo checked some past reports, which are similar to what Hichu said. As for whether Luoyu personally created experimental subjects or had the involvement of the W Institute, Mojue told him regardless of the Institute's participation, if Luoyu indeed hides in the Institute after escaping, any action by the base or the city security will definitely startle the snake. The two were silent for a while, then Shuo told Mojue that he needed to return to the base to discuss the next investigative plan with the colonel and they should part ways here. Just as he was about to get out of the car, Mojue stopped him. "My brother, no one will suspect my identity. Let me do the investigation." Shuo thought he was crazy. "The whole country is after you, any slight mistake would mean facing enemies on all sides." Mojue thought there was nothing wrong with that, perhaps only by being in a desperate situation, he could face his deepest true thoughts and feelings. "If I figure it out sooner, our relationship could also reach a conclusion. Isn't that good?" Shuo grabbed his hand. "Rather than letting you go to your death, I might as well arrest you right now." Just after he finished speaking, Mojue gave him a kiss. "Okay, brother, you want to arrest me now?" Shuo angrily grabbed his tie. "See Mojue, I'm not joking with you." Mojue expressed that he was serious too. "My father, Lan Mubai, was a researcher at the W Institute, where he met my father. I will not stand by idly concerning matters related to my dad." Although Mojue is the most suitable candidate for the secret investigation, Shuo is still worried about him. At this moment, Mojue takes out his cell phone. "Isn't the matter planned by Luoyu very dangerous? Don't hesitate anymore. Contact the base. Tell the colonel everything you know and let them come to catch me." Shuo hesitates but still takes the cell phone. After receiving the message, the people from the base quickly arrived. The colonel led his men and rushed to the rooftop. Just in time to see Mojue being hit by Shuo and watching Mojue fall down like that. With eyes full of sorrow, Shuo couldn't believe that someone like Mojue, who had been taking gland-suppressing drugs for a long time, actually possessed an A-grade gland. Luoyu immediately harbored ulterior motives. When the colonel arrived at the scene, Mojue had already been knocked down by Shuo. Then, after receiving the message from his subordinates that Mojue had escaped, the colonel immediately ordered a pursuit and turned to look at Shuo beside him. Mojue arrived at Jia Yingqing's villa. However, all his movements were being monitored by the cameras inside the house. Mojue touched the sofa. It was covered in dust, indicating that Uncle Jia must not have returned for a long time. Suddenly, a bullet shot over, and Mojue quickly dodged after reacting. He turned around and saw the two men pointing their guns at him, immediately sending vines to attack them. Then he grabbed one of them. "Don't move, or I'll break his neck right away," he said. Hearing from his subordinates that the Xia family had a new head, he was initially skeptical. But now he believed that Uncle Xia had indeed nurtured a very ambitious successor. "I was once fortunate to receive Uncle Xia's appreciation as well. How about we come out and talk?" The person who came out was Luoyu. The entire city was plastered with wanted posters for young Master C. "And you still have the time to chat?" Mojue was not surprised to see him. "Knowing I'm a wanted man and not reporting it? It seems your secrets are not as simple as I thought." Luoyu felt a bit panicked. Did he guess Xia Yingqing's situation? At this moment, Mojue let go of Luoyu's subordinate, indicating he had no interest in his secrets. He then pulled up a chair. "I'm here just to find Uncle Xia and borrow a boat to escape overseas, and to heal my wounds. If you insist on attacking me, then I'll have to fight to the death. Though I'm injured, causing some disturbance to alert the base won't be difficult." Seeing this, the subordinate suggested to Luoyu not to startle the enemy. After some thought, Luoyu asked his subordinate to get his medicine box. "I'll personally treat young Master C's wounds." Then I took out the instrument. "I need to scan your body to see if there are any internal injuries." Looking at the information displayed on the screen, Luoyu was very shocked. People who have been taking drugs to suppress gland growth for a long time can actually grow to a level in such a short period of time. If it is further artificially stimulated, then he will become 1 in 100,000 with an S-level gland. Thinking of this, Luoyu's hands began to tremble with excitement. Mojue also noticed his abnormality. At this time, Luoyu told him that the injury was not serious, but the wound was not treated well. "I will give you an injection of antibiotics first, and then extract a bottle of potion." Mojue was very cooperative. After the injection, Mojue immediately felt dizzy and drowsy. After Mojue fell into a coma, Luoyu proudly took off his mask. "It's great, an S-level gland delivered to the door, really effortless indeed." Luoyu is indeed a ruthless character. Without saying a word, he took a knife to Mojue. Shuo found Yunzhou and told him about Su Cixing being pregnant with his child. Now Yunzhou finally knows why he has been restless since he came back last time. Shuo could see that Yunzhou was very worried, just about to say something but was interrupted by Yunzhou. The feelings between people are too complicated, outsiders can't meddle, and in the end, they need to solve it themselves. This is also what I want to say to you and see Mojue. Shuo was stunned for a while, told him that she knew, and then the two started to check the information. The screen showed that 12 years ago, after the Luo Corporation announced bankruptcy, the heir couldn't withstand the blow and committed suicide. A month later, his wife left their twins behind and followed suit. The twins were then sent to the Angel Orphanage. The information that followed was just as He Chu had said. When they mentioned the Luo Corporation, Fu Mingzi stepped in and said that this matter did indeed have some connections with him. The Luo Corporation used to be the biggest competitor of the Fu family. At the height of its glory, it was always one step ahead of our family. I was able to take over from the old man by pushing out the Luo Corporation. Seeing their expressions, Fu Mingzi told them that the business world is a battlefield, but he hadn't used any despicable means. Then, he stepped forward, patted Shuoyu's shoulder, and told him to take a break from the case during his vacation, planning to take him and Yunzhou out to relax. At this point, Shuoyu directly ignored him and continued discussing the material with Yunzhou. Yunzhou also continued to respond to him. Fu Mingzi was speechless. These two were actually ignoring him. Yunzhou told Shuoyu that the bureau and the base had been following up on the investigation of this case. But later, some of these people went mad, some lost their memory, and some gradually died from glandular degeneration. What's even stranger is that no human traces could be found on them, making it impossible to hold anyone accountable. In the end, the matter was left unresolved. Shuoyu thought that the reason the base had eliminated Xian was that he was illegally trafficking glands. But now it seems that the biggest reason might be because he was the behind-the-scenes financier of the W Research Institute. If that's the case, the Research Institute is too terrifying. The doctors at the Research Institute told Luoyu that the experiment to promote gland growth had failed again. Luoyu was very angry. The current funding of the institute can no longer support the 12th research. Mojue, who was beside him, laughed and said, "This is the level of Uncle Jia's heir. It seems I overestimated you. You're quite obsessed with A-grade glands." Already furious, Luoyu directly lifted his chin with a scalpel. "You're now just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, yet you still care about my business?" Mojue remained calm. "What if I told you I could give you plenty of A-grade glands?" Thinking about the gland growth experiment, which had always been managed by Lan Mu, and knowing Si Mojue was his biological son, perhaps he really knew something. Thus, Luoyu let him speak. Mojue told him, "Binding someone to a cold surgical bed is not the attitude to ask for help." Who knew Luoyu would get furious again, pressing the scalpel against his throat? "You have no choice. Speak or die." Even with Luoyu threatening him with a scalpel to his neck, Mojue was not panicked at all, telling him he least liked to be threatened. "I have nothing but my life. What about you? Do you not care either?" Then the phone in Yunzhou rang. It was He Chu calling. It turns out Su Cixin had woken up and wanted to go home, asking Yunzhou to pick her up. Shuo worried it might be a trap. Yunzhou thought although He Chu's personality was unpredictable, his tone on the phone didn't seem deceitful. Nevertheless, Shuo still told him to bring two people along. Keep in touch. After Yunzhou left, Shuo still felt something was off. He Chu, being such a dominant person, actually took the initiative to let Su Cixin go home. This change is really something. Fu Mingzi told him that there's nothing strange about it. When you truly love someone, you change and compromise for them. Shuo told him that's not the case, it was just thinking of oneself. Actually, he also thought of Si Mojue. The changes and compromises he made unconsciously, were they also because of love for me? Fu Mingzi looked at the information and asked Shuo what W Research Institute was doing. Shuo didn't understand why he was asking that. Fu Mingzi straightforwardly said that if he has anything he wants to know, he can ask him. Since that's the case, Shuo directly asked him if there was anything suspicious about the Research Institute. Fu Mingzi began to recall and couldn't pinpoint what was wrong, but the changes in W Research Institute over the past year were significant. Many of the equipment in Fu's group hospital were provided and maintained by W Research Institute, but the cooperation between them ended a year ago. Afterward, they were frequently targeted in the business association. Shuo asked him if all these were done by Xiangcheng. Fu Mingzi told him that Xiangcheng hadn't appeared long before the termination of the cooperation, and all affairs of the institute were handed over to his adopted son. Speaking of this adopted son, Fu Mingzi mentioned that he had never met him. He's mysterious and reportedly a white bat Omega. At this moment, Shuo thought of the laboratory in Gaza City, which also started a year ago. If Luoyu is really Jiangcheng's adopted son, then everything makes sense. The Luo family went bankrupt due to the suppression from the Fu family. Luo Yu had a close relationship with the twin orphans of the Luo family since childhood. So after taking over the W Research Institute, he targeted the Fu family because he hated the Fu family, or rather, he hated his father. Then Shuo Yue looked at Fu Mingzi. "Father, I have something I want you to help me with," he said. Fu Mingzi agreed immediately. But seeing Shuo Yue's expression, it felt like it wasn't a good task. In terms of scheming, Luo Yu still couldn't match up to Mojue. In the end, he had no choice but to agree to cooperate with him. After listening to Mojue's proposal, Luo Yu untied him. Then Mojue wanted to see their previous data. At Luo Yu's signal, an assistant brought the data to Mojue. After reviewing it, Mojue immediately pointed out that the raw materials were fine, but the data was a complete mess. "I can tell you very clearly that no one except me can correct the data in a short time," Mojue said. Feeling threatened, Luo Yu started to get annoyed. "I wonder if young Master C is confident in correcting the data in a few days," he asked. Mojue was very confident, telling him that one night, Luo Yu thinks he is really arrogant. Then he pulls out a chair for him. "Since that's the case, tonight Master C will work hard here. My men will accompany you outside and in front of the monitor. Master C must work diligently." The next morning, Mojue is enjoying breakfast. Luo Yu is checking data next to him, then looks at Mojue in shock, asking, "What's going on? Where's the data? Why is there nothing?" Mojue points to his head. "Nowhere else, it's safer here. I'm on your turf. What if you betray me if I hand over the data willingly?" He also sets terms with Luo Yu. "I will personally direct the research and development. During this period, I need you to prepare the funds and the ship." Luo Yu agrees immediately, telling his assistant that the materials needed for research and development can be requested through him. At this time, the assistant comes over and tells Luo Yu that the subsequent research needs financial support, asking, "Has there been any news from Secretary Jean?" Mojue was merely an onlooker. "Isn't he Chu your old flame? I heard he's always been quite generous to his intimates." Subjected to such teasing, Luo Yu also felt quite uncomfortable. "Thanks to young Master Bai Si, he Chu now won't even answer my calls, much less give me any money." Then, the two of them started bickering. Mojue quickly asked him to get ready. "Even if I rush your people to work day and night, it will still take 3 days to develop the potion." And Luo Yu provided him with the address of Lan Mubai's previous residence, instructing his men to take him there to rest first. Meanwhile, the person Luo Yu sent to attract investments arrived at Huatai, but after waiting for an hour, the contact person still hadn't appeared, causing his men to suspect they were being played. Just then, the door opened and a beautiful woman walked in with a charming gait, apologizing for making them wait so long. Mojue truly remembered the scent of his brother, realizing it was Shuo Yu brothers just by the scent of a pen. After reviewing their contract, the female secretary told them that the asset valuation report they provided was fine. Just as she was about to sign, she realized her pen was missing, then remembered it was in her coat. The man gentlemanly offered his own pen. "If you don't mind, please use mine." The female secretary happily accepted, and at that moment, the man was already enamored with the secretary's beauty. When signing, a pen slid out of the female secretary's sleeve. It turned out that before entering the conference room, the female secretary had someone prepare this USB drive-equipped pen. After signing, the secretary swapped the pens back to the man. "This contract will take effect as soon as Director Jie signs it. There's no issue with the contract." The man was in a hurry to leave, taking his people and quickly departing. After they left, the female secretary immediately had someone follow them to ensure both the person and the pen reached the research institute safely. The man returned with the contract. As Mou passed by, he smelled a familiar scent on him and instantly used minds to bind him. "Who are you?" At that moment, Luo Yu came over and stopped him. "I don't know what my secretary did to offend young Master C." Mojue was surprised. This person is his secretary? He thought he was a spy sent by someone else because of the familiar scent and then released him. It turned out to be a misunderstanding. "I'm really sorry," Luo Yu inquired about the scent. The secretary told him that the person in charge of liaising at Huatai Investment was a female secretary, likely her perfume. Luo Yu chuckled. "Young Master C is quite cautious." Mojue looked helpless. "What can I do since I'm a wanted criminal?" "No choice, since I'm a wanted criminal." Then the secretary handed the contract to Luo Yu. The contract needs President Xie's signature. After they left, Mojue took out the pen he had just taken from that secretary. Over here, Fu Mingzi started to complain to Shuo Yue, saying, "You took medicine and disguised yourself, and you made me spend billions to sign the contract just to get this asset report." Shuo Yue told him that Luo Yu was cautious and wouldn't bet everything on the W Research Institute. The asset evaluation report could reveal a lot of information and might have unexpected gains. Meanwhile, Yi Ling was puzzled that the receiver still had no response. Could Mojue really detect that we swapped the pen with the leopard print secretaries? Shuo wasn't entirely sure about this either. Mojue sniffed the pen and confirmed it had his brother's scent. Luo indeed still didn't trust Mojue and even used hypnosis on him. Mojue went to the bathroom, unscrewed the pen, and found a chip inside. During their training at the base, they had mentioned that this kind of chip, when connected to a network shared by all devices, would allow the base's hackers to quietly access the network. This would greatly facilitate his search for clues. Although he wanted to see his brother Shuo soon, he had to remain calm, especially at such a critical moment. Luo is suspicious, acting now would definitely arouse his doubts. Thinking I should rest first, it's been a long time since I've had a full night's sleep. I'll find a chance to implant the chip tomorrow. Then I came to this room, where my father once lived. Dad initially gave up everything and married Mom because of his love for her. But in the end, it turned out that way. My brother and I will never end up like that. After lying down, I noticed a clock hanging on the opposite wall. Strange, Dad never liked this style of things. And it's hanging in such an odd place. Looking at the clock, Mojue gradually felt sleepy and soon fell asleep. I even had a dream. In the dream, I heard someone calling me. I turned around and it was brother Shuo. Mojue was very happy. I hurried forward and hugged him, expressing our longing for each other. Then there was a kiss. I didn't expect Shuo to be so forward. Watching the sleeping Mojue on the bed, constantly calling out to his brother Shuo, the leopard was speechless. Even under hypnosis, he's still obsessed with the other person. You'd have to be a ghost to not believe he's an undercover agent. Then I realized if this is their trap, that the contract signed today. Luo beside me looked very calm. The person who sets the trap will definitely make it convincing. As long as the other party pays tomorrow, any request can be made. Let her enjoy it fully. There won't be such an opportunity in the future. After a night of beautiful dreams, Mojue woke up the next day feeling dizzy. Noticing that bit of cream, her face immediately turned red with embarrassment, thinking it must be because she dreamt of her brother last night. She got up and prepared to find some of her father's clothes to wear, then went to the lab. Her subordinate came over to tell her that all the materials were ready, asking when to start making the potion. Mojue told him not to rush and used the excuse of checking the materials. She secretly inserted the chip into the mainframe. Shuo immediately received the notification. The technician told him that a total of 48 encrypted devices were online and it would take about half an hour to crack all the devices' passwords. At this moment, Yiling came over to tell Shuo that the leopard secretary had arrived and was in the next office. On this side of the laboratory, just as his subordinate was about to hand over the data of the catalyst to Mojue, suddenly there was a slip of the hand. The notebook fell to the ground, and as he bent down to pick it up, he noticed that the computer's main unit was constantly flashing. Seeing this, Mojue quickly turned around to block the view and asked him who prepared these few drugs, and if there was any problem. The subordinate immediately panicked, quickly got up to check. Mojue told him to replace these few drugs with the old version, as the old version has a lower concentration and a higher cost-performance ratio. Then he looked at the main unit below. The green light stopped flashing. It seems that the decryption was completed. He told him that there was no problem with the other materials and to let those people go rest for now. Several people said they were ordered to assist and couldn't just let him work alone. Mojue told them that he needs to integrate the data, sort, and group them, which would take a long time. If you have the energy, you can wait here. Upon hearing this, some began to hesitate. On this side, after Leopard's secretary finished the call with finance, he told the female secretary that the first payment had been received. The female secretary is also very polite. Secretary Kim, please take a seat. There is something that might require Secretary Kim's assistance to arrange. In the morning, a new order from the board of directors requires us to conduct a field inspection at the research institute and then submit a report to the board. Otherwise, the subsequent funding cannot be approved. Upon hearing this, Secretary Leopard was a bit troubled. These days, the research institute is conducting a very important study. I'm afraid. The female secretary assured that they are now partners and will definitely keep the work confidential. Secretary Leopard, worried about too many people talking, told the female secretary that if she were to go alone, he could make the decision. The female secretary agreed, thinking although it's risky to go alone, further negotiations might raise suspicions. Seeing the female secretary agree, Secretary Leopard immediately revealed a sly smile. Mojue could never have imagined that this beautiful woman in front of him was actually pretending to be there to save his brother. Luo arrived at the laboratory, told everyone to go back to rest, and informed them that the investors would come for a visit and inspection at 10. Everyone, be careful. Leaving Mojue alone to continue working, he also locked the door after leaving. Mojue guessed that the sudden visitor at this time was most likely someone from the base in disguise. There was still an hour left until 10 o'clock, thinking that he had to hurry up. On the other side, Secretary Leopard informed Luoyu that the valuable medicines and samples had all been transferred to the ship. It seems that Luoyu had already prepared a backup plan. Mojue discovered through the documents that the Institute had been conducting illegal research as far back as 12 years ago. Did Dad know about it at that time? If he knew and was involved in the illegal research, then his death is definitely not as simple as a suicide. With time pressing, we need to transfer this evidence to the base first, so we can legitimately seal off this place. Jiaying is probably hidden somewhere here by Luoyu. As long as we catch him, everything will become clear. The female secretary comes into the lab from outside, and the leopard secretary enthusiastically introduces her around. While responding politely, the female secretary scans the surroundings and senses the faint scent of Mojue's pheromones, guessing he must be nearby. She then notices that area and asks the leopard what place it is and if it needs guarding. The leopard tells her it is just a small researcher being confined for a mistake. Then he takes her to visit other places. At this time, the female secretary also begins to secretly transmit information. Inside, Mojue hears a girl's voice from outside and wonders if there are any female agents at the base. At this moment, I smelled my brother's pheromone. Looks like he's here. It's time for me to go out too. Then I released the vines and launched an attack on the soldiers outside. One of the soldiers didn't notice and was instantly killed by Mojue. Following the butterfly's guidance, Mojue arrived at the entrance of the women's restroom. While he was still unsure of the situation, someone suddenly pulled him in. Seeing a girl in front of him, Mojue was very surprised. "Are you my brother?" The next second, the girl leaned in and gave him a kiss. Finding out that his brother came to the lab specifically to bring him an antidote out of concern for his safety, Mojue was very happy. Suddenly, being pulled into the restroom and kissed by his brother left Mojue stunned. After pushing the medicine into Mojue's mouth, Shuo let go of him and told him that during the operation, the colonel and others would release a lot of poison gas here first. "This is the antidote, take it." Mojue didn't understand. Since the data had already been transferred to the base through the chip, what was his brother doing here? Shuo gently stroked his cheek. "No matter what, I always have to make sure you're safe before taking action." Mojue secretly rejoiced in his heart. "My brother cares about me." Then, Shuo took out his phone to send a message to the colonel and the others. Next, he took Mojue to find a place that was not easy to detect and waited for the colonel and his team to infiltrate. "With my brother here, I feel very safe." After coming out, the laboratory was quiet. Shuo felt something was wrong. When they arrived, there were guards and researchers around, but now they were gone. Mojue also noticed that the power hadn't been cut, but the equipment inside had stopped working. This was abnormal. They quickly realized that their plan had been exposed. Luoyu wanted to escape. Then, Mojue quickly pulled Shuo to chase after him. Shuo didn't understand. The base had them completely surrounded outside. How would they break through? Via the waterway? Mojue told him that Luoyu indeed bought a cruise ship. Initially, he thought it was prepared for him, but now it seemed it was Luoyu's plan for his own escape. Meanwhile, Luoyu and his group were retreating. Leopard asked him, "Just like that, you're letting Mojue make a fool of you?" Luoyu told him, the plan was to use him and the base to expose Jiangqing's deeds to the public. Besides, didn't we get a large sum of money? I've seen the data organized by Mojue. Even without him, I can produce the drug. As for Jiangqing, I have already arranged a team to escort him to board the ship. At this moment, Moju's voice suddenly came from behind. "Luoyu, do you think you can escape?" Seeing the female secretary with Mojue, Luoyu wasn't surprised at all. Miss Fu was indeed from the base. "But Mojue, does the base know you're poisoned?" Upon hearing this, Shuo was very worried. Mojue told him it's fine. The poison he used is something I've been exposed to since childhood. It can't hurt me. Luoyu started to laugh. If it weren't for a familiar poison, how could Si Xiaoxiao have drunk it so fearlessly? Now, Si Xiaoxiao, why don't you try the effect of this poison after it has been catalyzed? As he spoke, he released his grip, and the vial of the drug fell to the ground and shattered. The two immediately used their skills to defend. At the same time, Luoyu's men opened fire on them. During the evasion, Mojue inhaled the gas and got hit. Seeing this, Shuo hurriedly ran towards him. "Hey Ju.